You don't always have to fuck her hard. Sometimes, in fact, that's not right to do. Sometimes you gotta make some love and fucking give her some smooches too. Sometimes you got to plead. Sometimes you got to squeeze. And sometimes you got to say, welcome to the House of Auger show. My name is JT Auger. I'm your host and the man of the house. Tonight with me are my co-hosts, Adam, Sativa, Joel and Nicole, hey. Mac. Everybody say hey. And we have a very special guest with us tonight. We have JC Potts. JC, you with us? JC?
Yeah. Well, what's up? You
scared us there for a minute.
I'm not just a person on the internet, I promise.
Quick disclaimer for everyone listening. Couple of things. Number one, this is not a family-friendly show, so if you are underage or easily offended, this is not the place for you. We're going to be talking about all kinds of things. We'll be cursing, telling dirty jokes, talking about adult subject matters and what have you, and gay sex orgies, the whole 9 yards. And every once in a while, unfortunately, thanks to the gear that I'm using, I get kicked every once in a while. So if I drop, if all of a sudden I was there and now I'm not, that's why. Don't worry. Give me a second. I'll be right back. JC, sir, for the majority of us, I think, who aren't in the piercing industry, for those of you who are not in the know, please tell us a little bit about who you are.
Okay, well, it's, not to brag or anything, but I'm a fairly well-known person in the professional piercing community. I've been piercing since March 14th of 1994 was my first day in a professional shop, and I've been operating mostly pretty consistently ever since then. That gives a certain amount of notoriety in and of itself, just for the fact that if you can survive 20 years in this shark tank, then you've done pretty well. But beyond that, I'm also, I think, the most watched, most subscribed YouTube piercing. I can't say I pioneered the genre of piercing videos, but without any trace of arrogance or conceit, I will say I do the best.
That's awesome.
Agreed.
That is super. Yeah, you know what's funny is Sativa was just explaining to us that a lot of her technique came from watching your videos.
That is awesome. I've always been one of those people that I knew how hard it was for me coming up, and I know how, well, to be honest with you, most of the game theory on it does kind of dictate that professionals are going to be loath to try to share much of their professional information with anybody. So what winds up happening is when people make it, they pull the ladder up behind them. And I've always felt that was not I don't know. I can't do that. I've always wanted to keep the door open for people. And plus, when I started doing the YouTube videos, there was I'd have clients come in all the time who were like, oh my God, I'm scared to death, man, because I've been watching YouTube videos all day about this stuff, man, and I'm just fucking terrified. And it's like, and I understand because, back in those days, nobody wanted to put anything out there. They were afraid of putting information out there because they're afraid that somehow, because you know how to grow up a potato, that you're going to want to go and compete with potato farmers. It's the dumbest thing ever. I think it's that by showing people proper, solid techniques, that does more to eliminate hackery in this business than all the legislation you could ever dream of.
Sure. Yeah. Sure, and that should be really any trade or industry. You need access. Those who are going into the field should have access to the masters at the field so that they can learn.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And and to be honest with you, most of once you get to a certain level, You don't really look at newbies as a threat anymore. And those guys are generally really accessible, actually. Like Luis Garcia is a super, super prominent piercer, very solid guy. And, no joke. You ask him anything and he'll tell you straight out. But he's also somewhat of a rarity because he's another 20-year dinosaur guy like me and stuff, and there's just not that many of us. Most of us get some sense and find something better to do.
Sure. Yeah, we actually we interviewed Sativa a couple weeks back, not too long ago. She gave us a crash course in piercing. I didn't know anything. I have a lot of terminology. I have zero piercings. I know zero about anything about it. So for me, at least, it was really fascinating, especially coming from somebody, Sativa, who has 87 piercings.
Holy shit, man!
Not that many, Jesus.
I was about to say, I was like, but still, that's a lot, man.
Just 81,
15
right?
or something.
I'm sneaking on 60.
Okay.
Oh, 60. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I thought it was more than that.
God, the maintenance just must be incredible. Holy smokes.
See, I told you. I know I was a little off, but for real, that's fucking insane. So
that's beyond casual fan or I'm interested in it. It's like, no, that's your committed lifestyle choice at that point, man.
Absolutely. Her nickname is Metal Face. And
No,
there's a reason.
Well, when I first started talking with you guys, I was wondering, Metal Face, that kind of sounds like somebody I'd hang out with. So, like, I kind of guessed that maybe we have somebody with a lot of metal, but you never know. It could be somebody with braces. They could just be really into metal music or something like that. I try not to be.
So, I'm curious, though, how did you get into the industry? Like, how old were you and what drew you into it?
Well, as far as the professional end of it, to back up, I've always been kind of an edgy, antisocial person and stuff. And so back in
we talked about that a little bit before the show, how that you've got kind of we both share that trait, that kind of rebellious nature.
Yeah. I just literally can't help it. Whatever the general status quo is there to be kind of questioned at the very least. So I was always that edgy kid in high school, and I can kind of I guess I'm gonna be kind of influential here and there. So I wound up kind of stabbing myself some, and then some of the other guys were like, hell yeah, man, that's cool. So I wound up being stab them too. And mind you, this is like late 80s, so they're really and in Northwest Oklahoma there wasn't any kind of professional pierce and nothing even remotely close. So it was just a bunch of kids with sharp objects. And I mean, I did my first piercing with one of my great grandfather's World War II medals. Like,
wow.
Yeah, not exactly the most auspicious of beginnings, but immaterial though. I never really had considered body art as any kind of, viable idea of making money or anything like that. Because at that point, it really, really wasn't. Outside of Southern California or maybe New York, you really couldn't make much of a living in the body piercing, doing piercings professionally. Now,
there wasn't really an industry at that point.
No. There was a few people who did do it, and it was a burgeoning thing at that point, but not like anything even remotely close to what we anticipate now.
I'm curious, was it more expensive to get piercings back 10, 20 years ago?
Oh my God. When I first started piercing, a stainless steel captive bead ring that you can get from a very high quality American manufacturer.
That's quite a.
Well, when there's only a couple of manufacturers, though, of course, supply and demand being what it is, they can kind of dictate their prices. Now, once competition entered into the fray, then prices started dropping.
Mm-hmm. Capitalism.
You gotta love it, But at the end of the day, though, what what really kind of kicked off the modern body, and people hate me for pointing this out, but but hey, I'm used to it. I'm comfortable with it. The fact is what really, really, really started it was in 1994, Aerosmith released a video for a song called Crying. And in that video, that's what also launched Alicia Silverstone's acting career.
Yes, and what's her name? He did, his daughter, right?
Liv Tyler. I don't think she was
Liv
in
Tyler. She wasn't in that one?
I don't know. And it's not salient to this point, though.
Okay, I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. The point is Alicia Silverstone in that video played a character of a girl who she fights with a boyfriend. She runs away. She's seizing her power, and she goes. And part of her rebellious thing is she goes and gets her belly button pierced, and then and then fakes a suicide.
That's a really healthy.
To be able to fly her middle finger at that man who wronged her and stuff like that. But,
right. It's very healthy mindset.
Yeah, well, but the thing is it's a very, very that's a powerful meme when you look at it. It's intrinsically tying female empowerment, rebellion, and body piercing all together, and people don't point out how powerful that meme is and how it was literally fed to us by MTV.
Right, because that was a big hit. I remember Aerosmith had a few like major hits, like one after the other, boom, 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 right in the mid to late 90s, and he was using Liv Tyler and Alicia Silverstone, like in three different videos or whatever. And I remember that song, and I remember that video everywhere. That's a trip, man.
Oh yeah. And it continues to this day. All these independent free thinkers out there, when they see a Kardashian, flashing her racy nipple piercing,
the nipple
on Rodeo Drive, they run out and single nipple piercing.
Wait! Is there something about the Kardashians and nipple piercings I'm not aware of?
Yes,
I don't pay attention to the Kardashians.
Oh my God!
Yeah. Kylie Jenner about a year and a half ago or maybe 2 years ago, got a single nipple piercing, and her publicists use it as, at first off as titillation to attract attention and just as a reason to spill some ink about her and stuff. So when she's out like I said, when she's out spotted shopping at Harrods or whatever, and it's like, Kylie Jenner was spotted today in a sheer top flashing her racy nipple piercing. And it's like, and everybody's like, oh my God, I must emulate. Oh my God, my peers and social betters have done something, so therefore I must imitate.
So do you see a genuine spike in business every time some celebrity shows off a piercing?
Without a doubt, actually.
No kidding.
Oh yeah,
unquestionably.
And it's like that with all kinds of other industries too. Back when I was a stripper, I used to moonlight at a nutrition store.
Wait. Back up. Did you say you were a stripper?
Yeah.
I'm gonna go back to, is there video of that?
Yeah. No, that's like early 90s. Thank God no videos exist of that.
You were a stripper. Wait, how did you get into that? Let's talk about that.
Well,
obviously naked.
Well, in those days, of course I was a lot younger, and I had spent a while in the Queen's service. And so when I was out of that, I went in weighing 132 pounds, came out weighing 167. And I was like, and 5% body fat. And I'm like, oh, cool. Now what do I do? And it's like, well, nobody's going to hire me. So basically it was like either drug dealing or sex work. And I didn't want to go into drug dealing. So basically I wound up in the adult entertainment industry.
That's stellar.
Well, it's I don't know, man. It's like, a lot of people give you high fives and stuff, and because
it does seem work.
No, it's awful, and it is, women just wind up, as long as you don't get too fat, you're okay. But with men, you have to maintain single digit body fat, keep your hair shaved down, keep tan, keep all that stuff. It is tough, but one way or the other, it doesn't matter if you say you were genetically blessed and you just because I know guys who literally didn't work out, didn't take steroids, didn't do anything, and they still were able to pull it off. However, they're poor.
Yeah.
People, male or female, it literally does. But because they are almost cursed with a certain amount of attractiveness, that's about what you get to wind up doing with yourself, unfortunately. So a lot of times for a lot of people, that is the best option. And if you don't have an education, or say you've got a criminal record or something like that, but you can shake your dick, then, well, hey, maybe you wind up shaking. I mean, for the first of it, man, felt like a rock star. They'd be packed around center stage 6 deep, throwing handfuls of money and underwear, and you feel like a rock star. But then after a while, you start realizing that, oh man, I'm poor and these women are rich, and I'm degrading myself 1,500 times a night for $1 a pop, and it doesn't feel good.
Really? So you get to a point where you start to feel degraded and you feel disillusioned by it?
I personally did. Job, it is really, really, really tough is in the bodybuilding community to, maintain high body mass, but still low body fat work.
Right. Okay, that makes sense.
But beyond that, though, it still winds up being a thing that you see a lot of, somewhat economically disadvantaged men without a lot of options who go and do this. And of course, too, most of it that way. A lot of us actually start out thinking, yeah, man, this is going to be awesome. Man,
I would imagine
5 different chicks a week and stuff, and that's true. You can do that and you will do that. But then it really, really quickly winds up being a really hollow existence where it's like, it's all just based on look and exploit and honestly crass exploitation of one another. It's rich.
It's superficial.
Well, yeah, it's rich people that are exploiting poor people, and poor people trying to exploit rich people, rich lonely people, and it's like both aspects of it are ugly, if you ask me. And I am honestly, it ruined everything.
Exploitation always is.
It ruined everything for me. I can't, or as far as like sex work in general, I know so many guys. Most guys I think probably watch pornography. And I can't enjoy it. I literally can't enjoy it. I cannot go to a titty bar and, cut loose and have fun with the guys and stuff. I mostly sit around. If I do go to places like that, I mostly sit around and commiserate with the women about how fucking shitty this is and how awful this is and how we have failed as a society that we let the least amongst us have to go and work as fucking, practical hookers just to be able to put food on their fucking table. And that's just, honestly, they don't like seeing me at the titty bar because I wreck people's worldviews, and it's like, oh shit, let him concerts, god damn it! No, he's gonna ruin it.
Oh, that's too funny. How long did you do that for before you finally bounced out?
About, I guess, a year, 14 months, something like that.
And then shortly after that, you went into piercing.
That's pretty much it. At that point, too, that was when Crying came out, and after that,
so Crying came out. It became it kind of launched the industry, as it were, for piercing. Is that right?
Pretty much. And then immediately after that, every tattoo shop in America was trying to hire a piercer because there were people and saying, oh, hey, do you do this? Do you do belly button piercings? I want to get my belly button pierced. And so there was money there. And so I was like, well, okay, I know how to do this. So
I'm curious, was that a dual thing back when it started? Like there were no piercing shops. It was like there was a piercer in a tattoo shop.
Largely. Now you had, pre 1994, I'm not aware of any other piercing specialty places except for Gauntlet, which was, they had 4 locations. They were originally trying to be a vertically integrated, complete holistic business. they wanted to basically control the entire body piercing world. From manufacturing to the piercing and installation to aftercare, everything under one roof. And honestly,
not a bad idea.
But if you get too greedy, then it's like trying to grab sand. It'll slip through your fingers. And what wound up happening?
Go ahead.
Now,
I was gonna say what wound up happening is a dude overextended himself trying to set up a maquiladora in Mexico to make body jewelry, and they fucked him. They took his money and left him high and dry, and basically destroyed his business.
That sucks. Well, that doesn't sound like he. I mean, it sounds like his only mistake was just being trusting.
Well, I guess you could say that. I would say rerunning the gauntlet by Jim Ward, and of course, like any book, read it like understanding that everybody's going to try to put their best foot forward, make themselves look good, and I like I said, read between the lines, read it with a jaundiced style, like and then be like, oh, okay, all right.
Now, would you say, JC, that was also right around the time that like BME was getting rolling, right?
I would say so. I really, strangely enough, for somebody who messes around on the internet as much as I do nowadays, I was a very, very late adopter. I originally was very much against the idea of piercers sharing information on the internet and stuff, for the idea, not because I didn't want to keep other people out of it, but more for the idea that I never, ever, ever wanted it to be A, mainstream, and B, regulated by the government. Because as soon as it starts getting regulated by the government, they're starting to be like, hey, nice income you got there, homie. It'd be a damn shame if somebody took 40% of it.
Right? How rigid are the regulations in Michigan where you have worked this whole time?
It's pretty much, to be honest with you, I don't know. I'm in a weird position because since, I'm fairly well known or whatever, they don't really me too much of a hard time, even with, I did speak to my inspector to called me, but, that was just because our inspection's coming up, and she's like, hey, I heard some stuff in the news, and, do I need to? Are we scheduling a inspection and stuff? So I had to, we had to iron all that out.
Right.
And that's regarding the controversy that you recently went through. Is that correct?
Well, where she saw news articles about me, yes, and she wasn't 100% because when I first started responding to all these people, I was like, fuck you, I'm packing up and leaving. I don't want to be in some place where people are threatening me and shit like that. My natural inclination is to run.
Well, now just so that we can bring everybody up to speed, you were recently involved in a controversy. Can you lay that out for us?
Yeah, general gist of it is, okay, I'll give it from the public perspective. Public perspective is that on, like, say, August 21st, a client had tweeted out that, white supremacist. Well, I'm all about splitting hairs and using proper terminology on things. I was called a white supremacist and an actual Nazi, and that I use. I love the actual Nazi part. It's like it's a tacit admission that we call people Nazis so much but this time we really mean it.
We have to clarify now.
yeah. This time, no, we're serious. But so long story short is, she had tweeted this out basically that, he's a racist. He used racial slurs and, don't ever go there. And then seemed to be a couple of her friends jumped on that and was like, oh, yes, vile, evil person. I felt very uncomfortable and blah, blah, blah. And,
it kind of spiraled out of control, didn't it? Like a bunch of people, you had her say it, and I guess like you're talking about, a couple of her friends backed her up on her claims, and then it just kind of snowballed or domino effect.
Pretty much. There had been a client I'd had maybe a week before who was a public relations professional, and so we started talking about. We had a 45-minute conversation about propaganda techniques, and during that, at one point one of her friends was filming me and edited it out, and the worst 8 seconds you could have out of that whole conversation, and posted.
Oh, really?
Oh yes, look, he's so vile, and what I had said something.
What did you say in the 8 seconds?
I had said that there are some powerful people out there who do not want white people to breed, and if they do, to breed with a black man or an Asian man.
Why is that? How is that racist?
The funny thing is what I don't understand. Well, I do understand it. It's the fact that if I was in a body that isn't male and isn't pasty, then whatever I talk about is absolutely no problem. No.
Right. I mean, that's what I don't understand. They're outraged about something that they themselves promote. The SJW agenda types, the leftists, the Antifa, all those folks, that's exactly what they cry for. They call for it. Let's outbreed the whites. Let's get rid of the whites. Death to white men.
Yeah. Oh yeah. All the time. This whole last week or so of the Kavanaugh confirmation fiasco has been just an incredible torrent of it. I mean, if you just look, it doesn't even take any time at all. They even have a nice little hashtag to make it easy for you: verified hate. And that's really okay. Verified hate. Hashtag verified hate is literally, it's people with blue check marks verified by Twitter saying anti-white things, like things that if you replaced it with Jewish or black or Chinese or whatever, anything other than white, then you would be immediately, you'd probably lose your job,
Right. But here it's okay because you're saying white.
Yeah, exactly. And like I said,
somebody's calling them out and using that hashtag as a way to kind of point out that they're being as racist.
Yes. And that it's not just that it's, and not just any old person too. That hashtag only gets used for people with that blue check mark that says that, hey, we're verified by Twitter and Twitter approved.
I'm loving this. That's such good news. That makes me all warm and fuzzy.
Well, but of course, too, YouTube, or not YouTube, but Twitter being what it is, though, they will never let it trend as a trending hashtag. I think they did once and quickly shut it down.
Right, because it goes against their agenda.
Absolutely. And this is just the stuff that I talk about with some people, not literally everybody who comes through the door or anything like that. But, if this is the way the conversation goes, and I'm absolutely going to talk about it. And if you expect me to apologize or feel bad for being locked in the body that my soul happens to be locked in, well, then I'm going to urgently invite you to go fuck yourself with a chainsaw.
I'm curious about a couple of things. This person who started this whole controversy, this client of yours, was this the first time that they'd ever come into your store before?
My knowledge, yeah, honestly.
And then, so she comes in, she has this conversation with, it was a she, right? Do I have that right? I'm sorry?
Oh, of course. You don't generally see men engaging in this type of behavior.
Right. Well, that used to be the case, but there is a shit ton of men
who say males. I said
identify males. As you.
Hey, don't assume their gender.
I didn't say males. I said men. Men don't do this. Males.
All right, that's fair. That's fair.
I love you so much right
point.
now, JT. You don't even know. Oh man.
So I'm
curious.
curious.
Snowflakes better than ice. But anyway, so let's see, where were we? I'm sorry.
Well, I have a quick question about.
Oh, you were asking me. Oh, was it a woman? Yes, she had come in. I'd never seen her before. And I can't say that it was a conventional interchange either. I asked her, okay, so what's your name? And she tells me, and I'm like, cool, where are you from? She's like, oh, I'm from here. Oh, okay, fantastic. What do you do? Oh, I'm a student. Oh, what are you studying? Social justice. Oh, okay, right on. And see, I'm not I'm not dumb enough to know, to ignore the fact that, yeah, of course, anybody who says that, hey, look, I'm into social justice, you're already dealing with a very thin-skinned, volatile individual.
Exactly.
But, I can't really help myself as it is and stuff. So it's like, we're going along, and I said something about how, because, be honest with you, she's over 6 foot and blonde and blue. And and she reported that she went to one of the local high schools that I know for a fact is, and because I hear it all the time about how, like, God, if you're blonde there, you dye your hair, man. You just wind up, most of the people who wind up, like, if they're naturally blonde there, they wind up either chopping their hair off or dyeing it or something like that. Well, because I think privilege and intersectionality and stuff, and the fact that I know that there is a cell of an organization called By Any Means Necessary.
Yes,
one of the parent organizations of Antifa cells, and one way that
exactly.
I know that that's one way that
domestic terror group is what it is,
without a doubt. But By Any Means Necessary is technically based out of Detroit, and so they have very, very strong ties around here. And I know that there is a cell of teachers up there, and they have their little social justice clubs and stuff like that. And honestly, the only way to avoid those people give you a hard time is by conforming. And by conforming, I mean that if you have naturally long, blonde, nice hair, you're going to chop it off, or you're going to dye it, or you're going to do something to kind of hide it so that you can deflect that criticism, because nobody wants to be socially ostracized.
Right, because it somehow reflects privilege or highlights the fact that you're white and cis.
And very much so. And it's like, you can't be like, oh, but I'm a Native American or any of that bullshit or anything like that, unless you're Elizabeth Warren. You can't get away with being blonde and blue.
Well, the idea is that she has the correct political views, so they let her get away with that.
Yeah.
No, that makes a huge difference, man. Because if I checked the D on my ballots, and I don't know, just ignored the facts and reality around me and stuff, then sure, I could probably rant and rave about whatever the hell I want.
Yeah. I mean, whereas a guy like Thomas Sowell, who literally checks off every single most intersectional bubbles, like he's black,
Sowell.
He was
love the guy, and you see how they treat him too, man.
Yeah.
Here's a black man who has an independent thought, super intelligent guy, super well educated.
Yeah,
and
came from nothing.
He's like, look, I don't buy your agenda until they call him a
Well, yeah, because you have to be a monolith. You have to conform. You can't leave the plantation.
Kanye. I mean, Kanye, and I don't know what Kanye's doing. I don't profess to understand what the man's got going on and stuff like that.
Here's the thing with Kanye. I think what you're looking at is somebody who is uneducated, a skill and talent musically, and he found his way to success.
You're quite wrong on that. No, very upper middle class family, and I believe one of his parents is a college professor. I believe he attended. What college? He went to college. He's anything but a dumb guy.
Kanye did.
Yes. Don't kid yourself. No, Kanye.
I thought he grew up in like the fucking ghetto.
No, he doesn't even ever try to claim that.
How does that man go to fucking college and talk the way he talks?
I don't see him really. I don't know. I don't see him really. Honestly, when I have seen him speaking, yeah, he's grandiose, and he has a bit of a, he has definitely an ego and stuff, but I don't see him necessarily speaking in an ignorant manner. He uses proper terminology. He uses correct syntax. He actually doesn't speak ghetto at all. Like if you actually listen to the guy, he's not any of this homie G-dog shit or anything like that. No, he's pretty erudite, actually. And I say this is not as a Kanye fan either. I mean, I'm not. I don't have anything for or against him. It's just not my. It's not really my type of music. I don't really.
Not your cup of hot dog.
It's kind of too mainstream for me.
Well, see, I don't know. I stopped paying attention to him after like the second album, but everything that he did initially when he first got in, man, I loved all his work. I really did.
And here's the thing: is I can separate an artist's output from the artist themselves, and just like with for instance, Jane's Addiction is a good example of that. I don't like Jane's Addiction music, like at all. Like there's nothing about it that I like. Sorry, Dave. Sorry if you're listening. But
are you talking about wait. Jane's Addiction is it? I walked right through the door. Right through the door.
Yes, that's them. Yeah, that's them. And
I like that song.
Well, hey, and each their own, and once again, I can separate the output from an artist from the artist themselves. Now, Perry Farrell, as an artist, mad respect for him. Same thing with Dave Navarro. He's an incredible guitarist and an incredible artist. However, is that particular project, honestly, it just doesn't speak to me, and that's fair.
That is totally fair.
And same thing with Kanye. Necessarily enjoy his output. However,
right.
I recognize the man as a, he's a legitimate creative force. I think he's a pretty intelligent guy. The question I have on Kanye is whether or not is he actually getting red pilled, or is it all a ploy just to be able to try to expand his audience to a different group? Because the Trump supporters, man, if there's a black dude out there in a MAGA hat, man, he's gonna get 10,000 retweets as it is, just because they're like, hey, look, we're not racist, man. Look,
10,000. Try a few million. No. Like, trust me. Like the MAGA crowd, they are very. They're big.
Yeah. Well, and two, they're also, they've been incorrectly labeled as and all this stuff, and so they're doing their best to try to. They're damnedest to try to show, when you got Latinos or black folks or Middle Eastern folks or Muslims or any of those folks who are like, supporting Trump, of course they're going to promote him and stuff like that, and I understand that it's just part of the game. I get it.
Are there Muslims who support Trump? That's interesting.
Absolutely. There's quite a few, actually.
Hey, you're in Michigan, so how far away are you from Dearborn?
We're about 15, 20 minutes away from Dearborn. But here's the thing, though. This is one of the other deals I've gotten in trouble for, is I know Dearborn folks. And, the television news will try to make Dearborn out to be, this is a hotbed of jihadist activity. No, it's not even close.
I don't think that's true.
That's South Hamtramck. No. Dearborn is sure, it's a lot of Middle Eastern folks, but they're not even the dominant group to start off with. And most of the Middle Eastern folks they have over there are Lebanese Christians, Chaldeans, Druze, some Yazidis.
They treat it like, everything that I've heard about Dearborn, and this is why I brought it up, was to kind of ask you, since you're close by, is that it's a Muslim, as close to a Muslim no-go zone as you can get, and that's not
even close.
Is that
right? Not even close. And I say this as a man on the right, who's fairly politically aware. You could say red pilled if you like. Okay. I say this as that. No, that's a red herring that's being put out by the media. No, the real no-go zone is South Hamtramck. Don't go down there talking that shit.
What is that? See, I don't know. I don't know what that is.
Hamtramck is a former Polish enclave that has its own political entity. It's a separate enclave. It has its own political government. It's a separate city, but it's surrounded by Detroit. It also borders Highland Park, which is also surrounded by Detroit. Hamtramck was Polish for the longest time. It was the Polish stronghold. Now the north side. Well, the north side is some old Polacks, but then the south side is largely Yemeni, and those guys are not like they're a lot of these. Yemen is a fairly undeveloped country, and it borders Saudi Arabia, surrounded by Saudi Arabia. They're a fairly strident bunch of people. It's not so much that they hate us; it's just that they've got their own shit. And if you go into that neighborhood and you don't respect them, then they'll kick your ass, and they're not scared of you.
Is there a large Pakistani population in the area as well?
We more have Indians rather than Pakistanis. There are some, of course, but it's not. No.
You're lucky because those Pakistanis, man, they're the worst.
Oh
They're
my God!
They're the worst. They
Oh my God!
The stereotypes you hear about people sleeping with goats and suicide bombers and the guys who are inbred and all that shit. That's Pakistani to its every single one. Everyone. Hold on. Just so you know, JC, one of our fucking co-hosts is Pakistani, and I just like to fuck.
Okay. I was about to be like, hey man, let me tell you, once again,
you were like, whoa, what did I get myself into?
I'm like, oh shit. No. Pakistan is a lot like America in the fact that, if you look at, if you judge America by, the least amongst them, then we look pretty shitty. But if you judge it by you judge it by our upper classes, and we're pretty shitty too. But if you judge us by your average dipshit, well, it's a mixed bag. It can be up and down and stuff. And I know some decent Pakistani folks, and I know some real shitheads too. That's part of the thing about living in Ann Arbor, man, is there's 190 countries represented here already, and everybody comes through. So you actually, if you're willing to talk to people and get to know them.
That's interesting that I didn't know it was such a urban area.
Well, it's only 100,000 residents here and about 40,000 students, but they actively promote and stuff. That it's one of those deals. They love having the diverse students. Has already tweeted about this because they have an $11 million annual budget and over 100 commissars on staff at the University of Michigan, whose job is diversity. Which I hear diversity, and I'm like, doesn't that mean like no like fewer white dudes? And everybody kind of and stammers and stutters and tries to tell me how it's not. And I'm like, yeah, you're just saying that in another way, man. No, you're still saying the same.
That's exactly. Which university just promoted or they praised their efforts. They were bragging basically. Some university has been over the last couple of years doing everything they can to promote diversity as it is and increase their
name a college that isn't.
Right. Well, one of them just bragged that they have their efforts to decrease, and they said it outright, to decrease the number of white students has worked over the last 2 years. And it's like, wow, you guys aren't even hiding it anymore. You just really, it's scary how much propaganda we're paying. And that's the part I don't understand. And it frustrates me is that you have these kids going to college now, like their parents grew up American, right? They should be pro-American. And yet somehow.
Oh, that's a good question. That's opened up a whole nother can of worms too, is what does it mean? Holy shit.
Somehow they're paying willingly, it seems, to send their kids to universities and college campuses to learn to hate America and to hate being white. I mean, the majority of people
were given for thinking that communists have infiltrated our education system. You could be forgiven for thinking that. Of course, that would just be some kind of crazy conspiracy theory. But hey,
but it's not.
They only bragged about it and talked about it for 40 fucking years. I don't know what to do, man. It's like I'm just doing this reporting. People that's part of the other problem I have is people think that my reporting of something implies endorsement. And I'm like, not necessarily, because just like how it's like you say, there's a college out there that say, oh, hey, we're doing everything we can to reduce the number of white students. I'm like going, wow, yeah, I can't imagine any kind of downside to that. I can't imagine any kind of, I just can't imagine that anybody's ever going to have any kind of backlash or anything. I'm the bad guy because I'm like, hey guys, is this a good idea? Should we do this? Is this potential?
They don't want debate. They shout you down anymore. The debate is something that you only see on the right side. Diversity of thought, diversity of ideas, diversity of ideologies, and everything. That's a right-sided thing. There's the left.
They come right out and say that diversity of thought is white supremacist dog whistle.
Oh, right. And that's insane. You know what's crazy is how they're so committed to their worldview, this perspective, that they can't even fathom, just as an example of just how crazy it gets, they can't even fathom any non-whites who don't support their agenda, to the point where they will call them white supremacists.
I love it.
It's insane. It's like
the black white supremacists, you know.
Right,
that's totally a thing.
To put
the
this
Hispanic white supremacists.
To give a little perspective on it, the girl whose tweet originally went viral, you know, I looked at her Twitter account and stuff, and she literally has tweets on there talking about how, oh yeah, just because you're dating black people does not mean that you're not a white supremacist too. And I'm like, really?
What
that fucking means? You know, it's like, what fucking planet are you on?
Like, you're not. Maybe if you're like a really twisted white guy who's like, yeah, I like dating black girls and then making them dress like Aunt Jemima, and then I dress like Mark Twain, and I call.
I
don't know. I can't imagine.
Hey, we can't kink shame it. We can't kink shame anybody, though, man. Just because somebody might enjoy race play doesn't mean that they should be kink shamed.
Actually, you know, I've dated a handful of black girls, and 3 of them are the ones who initiated. They're like, "Hey, let's role play. You want to do some like
only 3?
Huh?
Only 3? God, you
only
know that's
3. Well, I haven't dated that many black girls.
Well, I should say, what percentage of them asked for stuff like that?
Oh, that would be like 65%.
It's more like what I'm talking about. Yeah, it's like.
Well, that just goes along with the whole, because the power play dynamic plays so well with
of course.
You know, sex. It just kind of goes hand in hand.
Yeah, and to be perfectly honest, yeah, it does, and that's one of those. And I love talking with folks about. I have no problem talking about any of this type of stuff with people.
Right.
I've always thought that I would be shielded, because since I feel like I'm very clearly not a hater or anything like that. You know, I don't hate anybody. I mean, don't get me wrong. I hate plenty of people, but because they did something, not because of characteristics they were born with. Fuck, you know, when it was time to line up and pick your parents and pick your sex and pick which country you were born in, you know, fuck me for picking white male and American. You know, fuck me.
It's your fault, dude.
I totally chose it, you know, because everybody does, right? No, nobody fucking does. And so how am I ever going to hold that against somebody, man? I would never. You know, the only thing that my biggest deal is, I don't want it held against me neither. I didn't ask for maleness. I didn't ask for straightness. I didn't ask for whiteness. I didn't ask to be born in the post-colonial diaspora fucking world. You know, but this is the cards I was dealt, and I'm dealing with it. But I put my pants on just like everybody else does, and I demand respect. And if you're going to disrespect me because of the skin suit that I happen to be walking around in, well then fuck you.
Exactly.
Fuck yourself.
Exactly.
But, you know, okay, so that attitude now, though, you know, believe me, back in the 80s.
That makes you a Nazi. Makes you a white supremacist for saying that.
Yeah, literally. That's what I'm guilty of, you know.
You know, it's amazing to me how you can have black pride, you can have brown pride, you can have all kinds of other prides, but the only pride you can't have is white, because white pride equates to white supremacy. And I'm like, well, that doesn't make, I can't count how many times I've had that argument where it's like, no, wait. I can be proud of my heritage and everything without it having to believe that you're somehow inferior or I'm somehow superior and my heritage should be ruling. I just happen to like the cards I was dealt.
Whether or not you like it or not. It's the point is, and this is my point, is that, hell, I don't necessarily like the fucking team I got born on. However, I have accurately and very correctly noticed that, wow, depending on how you on how you count, we're as low as 9% and as high as 11% of the fucking world. That makes
exactly. We are the
minority. That makes a minority. And if
exactly
90% of the world is saying, "Hey, fuck Whitey," that puts us and me in a very, very awkward position.
It does. It fucking does. And you know what pisses me off is when you point that out, when you say, you know what? Only here in America are we a majority. If you look at things from a global perspective, we are the smallest minority group there is. The minute you point that out, whites and non-whites alike both immediately respond like defensively or aggressively and say, that's stupid. You're stupid for saying. Why am I stupid for saying that? Why is that dumb to point that out? Why are you so incapable of acknowledging that and incorporating that into your worldview? How is it that you don't understand that makes a difference?
It's literally been pounded into our head from day one. I mean, if you're under the age of 75, it's been pretty much pounded into your head since day one on multiple aspects too, from not just media, but the education system, and then honestly looking to our peers and social betters who all are saying, "Oh my God, we're all so awful. We've done all this awful things to people," and I'm like, I didn't do shit. Fuck off.
Yep.
I mean.
What I don't understand is how there seems to be two different sets of whites. There's the whites who subscribe to white guilt, and then Nazis. And those are the only two whites you can be anymore. That's it.
I'm gonna put that on a shirt, man. Holy shit.
That's all you got. That's fucking it.
Yeah, but it's true. But it is very true, and and there are reasons for all this. And I mean, hell, I can talk for days, literally days, about this type of stuff.
I know, same.
It's really it's unfortunate, and it's a really hard thing. And the point that I make with all of it is that if it gets to a point where saying something is as bad as not saying anything, then you're going to have people saying something. If the cost is equal, then shit, why not? And then I remember,
I totally hear you. I remember hearing, speaking to what you're just saying about the cost of saying something. Universities used to be a place where you could challenge ideas and notions and
yes,
core beliefs,
and thoughts,
right? And there is that's the one diversity that seems to be drowning out, being pushed out is the diversity of perspective, diversity of thought. Yeah. But I remember hearing about this one female professor who, just to challenge her class, I don't remember what the class was. I don't think it was social studies or social, gender studies or women's studies or anything like that. I think it was a legitimate class. But she hit the point.
It's a legitimate class.
What's that?
Not one of those blank studies classes, but a real class.
Right. Not one of the soft sciences, as they call them, or what have you. So my point being, she brought up in her class a statement to have them debate over it. And the statement was, rape is not the worst thing that can happen to you.
I remember that.
Brilliant. You remember? You know what I'm talking about. And it was supposed to spark debate, not to be a challenge to you or somehow a challenge to your.
Oh, he got kicked.
And there went Auger.
Okay, I thought it was
I can take over though for it. I know that it was not a thing that was supposed to have been done to cause controversy or anything like that, or indeed try to sow division between the students in the class. It was literally maybe a somewhat misguided attempt at just stimulating conversation and debate techniques.
Yeah.
And fortunately, we do exist in an environment that, that's just tantamount to advocating for rape in some people's mind.
Yeah, just speaking the word.
And her femaleness did not shield her. because once again, if you go off the reservation, they will come for you.
Mm-hmm.
During
You
the
mean
days
they're
I got-
totally offended?
I got
during
kicked.
the days of, you know, like Harriet Tubman carried a small pistol with her when she was rescuing slaves, because some of them were like, oh shit, no, I want to go back. And she's like, look, motherfucker, you're going to fuck us all over. I'll leave you here. You're coming with us. Because there was always a certain percentage of the disenfranchised who will absolutely fight to keep that status quo going.
Mm-hmm.
It's mostly because they fear the idea of true freedom, of like, what's going to happen if I don't have somebody over here providing for me, if I don't have somebody over here feeding me, if I don't have somebody over here telling me what I got to do, man. Oh my God, I could wind up, you know, I could wind up being having to be on my own actually, and I could fail, and oh God, what happens then? You know,
I used to be really anti-authority. I still kind of am, but I understand it more. I'm not entirely like fuck all cops and all that shit, but I used to be. And at the time, I used to have this theory that the reason that America is much like a prison, and you have the citizens, which are the inmates, and you have those in power, whether they be the rich, powerful elite or political elite, who are like the warden or the owners.
they're the owners. You could say that they're the administration, or
but they're also they're kind of the guards too. And that's the thing, is that
you always have a certain percentage of the prisoners though who will totally snitch on one another to try.
I always felt that there was this disconnect with the police, with our law enforcement, in that they believe themselves to be guards, as it were. And I don't see it that way. I see it more like you're the trustees. You're inmates just like the rest of us. But you were given a little bit extra. You know, they let you have a TV in your fucking cage. You get you get a candy bar once in a while if you rat on somebody. You know, you get some perks with your position. But you're just as much an inmate as the rest of us.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, absolutely. And honestly, you'd be really surprised at how many police officers actually are acutely aware of this. And that's part of their survival strategy, is to have that network, to have that amount of training power, have access to the equipment, have access to the databases, and be able to use that to keep themselves safe. I mean, at the end of the day, everybody is trying to do the same thing. They want to keep themselves safe. They want to be able
to keep their family safe.
Yes, they want to keep keep their family safe, keep their children, have some children, hopefully, usually, or do something that winds up being able to give their lives meaning and purpose. Nobody wants to be socially ostracized. Nobody wants to feel threatened. Everybody is going to go through whatever they have to do to make sure that happens. And for some people, that strategy is to be part of law enforcement, to be able to have that, that leg up. And I understand that. I do the same. I basically have done the same thing though with, trying to build my own parallel, not polices or anything like that. But, I've always felt that it's better to have, your own crew rather than to try to join someone else's.
How do you mean? Elaborate on that for me.
Well, anybody can be a faction. Any faction, it doesn't matter. Factions are that's the way I see things. There's individuals and there's factions, but that's really about it. And anybody can be part of any faction. You could go join law enforcement yourself and be part of the law enforcement faction. They exist because they have not a monopoly on force, but they have a certain amount of force that they can bring to bear. And that force can look like actual physical violence, or it can just like political pressure. It can be anything like that. And I'm jealous. You can. There's a lot of different ways to bring things to bear. You can exert just as much influence without ever raising a hand or firing a shot if you have numbers, if you have people behind you, if you have, a certain
you can intimidate.
Well, a certain, honestly, I hate to say it, but yes, there is a certain sense of force behind that.
Well, of course.
Like the voice, of however many people. And now also too, there's a metaphysical aspect of it too. The more that people believe in something, the more concrete and real it gets to be. So if you can get, if you can get 1,000 towards being a little more real, if you can get 1 billion people to think that, then wow, hey, that's pretty hard to argue with. If you can get them all to believe something, like how we believe in gravity, well, okay, that's an immutable force. We all believe in it, it does, but like, for instance, the Queen of England, arguably the most powerful woman in the world, and
really, you think that?
She's that way because we largely agree on it.
But she doesn't. I mean, she's a figurehead. She doesn't really. No, it's not like she can just point and say. I mean, she can point and say, "Move that chair over there." Like nobody. She's not gonna be like, "We're going to war," and everybody's like, "I guess we're going to war."
Are you sure about that?
Yeah. Why? I mean, can you imagine? Like, there's still Parliament. There's still you still got your
Parliament advises the Queen.
Prime Minister.
Prime Minister answers to the Queen.
Not really.
Yes.
I mean, Augie, it's a monarchy, honey. That's how that works.
Here's the thing: is if you were an absolute monarch and your people had already cut the heads off of some of your predecessors, and you really, really, really wanted to keep in power, would you go out there and dictate to them, or would you give them a feel of like, hey, guess what? You can file a grievance with the prison, and the warden's going to actually care.
Like the illusion of choice. Right, I understand that. However, the illusion of choice in this matter is for her and her family. Her family. These are figureheads that keep the people happy because they want to see a queen and a monarchy. The monarchy doesn't actually exist anymore. The Magna Carta, for starters, saw to that. And then once they sold everything off, and said, listen, just give us the land and let us make our money off the taxes of the land that we keep and hold. Their power is next to nothing. The Queen cannot just point and say things and it just happens. That doesn't.
Well, if that was the case, then I would like to have an explanation as to why she showed up at the United Nations. I think she's only ever addressed the United Nations once, and she showed up and says, "Guess what? All you rich countries are going to give one." Happen to own them lock, stock, and barrel. Have a nice day. Now, you tell me that's not a powerful person.
When did this happen?
About 10 years ago.
I'm gonna have to look into that. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't have my notes in front.
I don't know about that. That's something you're catching me off guard. If that's
I don't have my notes in front of me, so I can't really quote chapter and verse or anything. But yes, that absolutely happens. If anybody, it's a great trick that they've played on people to make them think that, oh no, they don't actually have absolute power. Oh no, don't kid yourself.
Well, I mean, if we're going to talk about, I don't know if we're talking about conspiracies, but I'm always down to. There's the whole matter of their genealogy, the British monarchy.
Yeah, if you want to go back far enough and stuff, or at least the well, I don't know about the Habsburgs themselves, but because they're about as English as I am, Yeah, they're all Germans, man. Their last name was something else before the war. They changed it from something I can't remember, or changed it to Windsor. It's kind of a funny thing.
That's pretty awesome, actually. I was not aware of that information previously.
Yeah, I find that a lot with a whole lot of the things that I talk about, that folks just, it is not a deal of that they're dumb or anything. It's just that, man, ain't nobody out there advertising it. How many Americans do you know have ever even heard of like the Visegrad Group?
Right.
The Visegrad?
Yeah.
Yeah, the Visegrad group, the Czech Republic, Poland, Slovakia, and Hungary, and they've created a strategic bloc. They're doing everything they can to get Austria, Croatia, and possibly Serbia in on it too. They're basically essentially rebuilding the Austro-Hungarian Empire.
I'm kind of for it.
I have no problem with it.
Knowing anything more, just knowing what Poland and Hungary are doing currently, in terms of how they're interacting in the EU and how they're rebelling, and they're basically saying "fuck whatever your fucking vote is." It doesn't matter. We're not going to do what you say. Fuck you guys. Like, I'm kind of for that. I kind of like they're very nationalistic, and I think that that's a good thing.
Yeah, I have no problem with it in one way or the other. Game theory predicts it too, because if you have the West doing everything they can to diversify, and you've got, the East over in Russia and stuff, they've got their own problems and their own agendas and stuff. That's Eurasia. It's a little different. They share a monster border with Mongolia and China. It's not, and it's been contentious too. I mean, everybody forgets that, Russia occupied Manchuria for years and years and years. I mean, like 100 years. And, it's still contentious over there. So they have their own issues and stuff. So of course, the Central European powers are going to do what they can to try for mutual benefit, mutual defense. And that's exactly what Visegrad is all about. And they are, they're expanding. They just elected what I would call a center-right government in Austria, who's extremely friendly to them. And they're, like I said, they're doing everything they can to try to get one of the former Yugoslavian nations, either Croatia or Serbia, to join up too. Because if they get that, then they have an entire corridor through Central Europe. They have cold water access to the North Sea, and then warm water access.
Now, hey, let me ask you this real quick, just if I can. This Visegrad group that they're trying to develop, is this in response to Russia? Is it in defense against Russia, or in preparation, just in case kind of thing?
Russia and NATO.
Well, I mean, that's what NATO was.
NATO has its own agenda and stuff, and sure, it's it's the North Atlantic Treaty Organization in Canada and stuff, and this is they're
agreed.
Yeah, so the Visegrad nations are doing that because again, they read Central Europe's agenda is not America's agenda, and vice versa.
Not only that, but my reason for asking in the first place was to point out that I imagine that they're seeing that NATO's really not. It's kind of outdated and obsolete. So I imagine this is in response to that. Like we're gonna have to start taking care of this on our own.
NATO is essentially the United States, honestly. I mean, it's Germany does like Germany's military.
Well, the United States influence in other countries.
Well, I mean, just from the simple fact of like Germany's actual military strength. I mean, the last war games exercises that they didn't have machine guns. They had to paint broomsticks black to stick them on the tanks because they literally don't have guns. They don't have ammunition. They've only got a few thousand working tanks and something like 40 working jets. It's absurd. Germany, yes.
That makes me so sad.
I don't know, man. They keep trying to fuck Europe up in the worst ways possible, man. I'm not entirely certain that they need guns and shit.
Here's my point to that. Only from a sense of these were a proud people who fucking nearly succeeded at the impossible twice, and to see them brought so low. I mean, yes, from one perspective, you can say, well, that's for the betterment of all of the rest of us. But on the other hand, it's like, man, it's just, you guys were so proud and now you're just kind of a laughing stock, and it's just sad.
But the thing about history is it does have now that you saw in the 20s, that led to some pretty bad reactions. You know, it's like, I'm just going off of what everybody else tells me. You know, everybody says, oh my God, I'm so scared of Nazis. Oh my God. And I'm like, well, then why the fuck are you people trying to create the exact conditions where they show up? What the fuck are you thinking?
This is how you make white angry men. This is how you do it.
Yeah. I'm like, dude, what are you guys? That's my whole point. I don't endorse this because it's like when we start getting into that realm of like when you start going that direction, well, I don't fit all that super well in that scene neither. And either one of those, all those totalitarian types are going to do, honestly, they're going to crush somebody like me. I'm too far right for the lefties. I'm too far left for the righties. It's a little hard for me. It's a little hard for me. So, and one way or the other, I don't care. I'm smart and I can run. I've got money. I'm not going to get caught up in a bunch of dumb shit. You know, I feel bad for the folks that are. I feel bad for the folks that are, you know, because honestly, if they keep going this direction, and they will, there's no way to stop this, then there's going to be a reaction. And
well, I don't know. There is the possibility that the left will eat itself because identity politics. They keep dividing. They keep creating new divisions, and they keep attacking their own for somehow for the slightest of diversions. You know, you're different because of this, and now you're not the same as us because of that, and it just keep ousting little bits and little bits and little bits before you know. And we the right or conservatives tend to integrate those groups that get ousted.
Yeah, and that's something I have pointed out to folks is the fact that the Sturmabteilung, the SA, the brown shirts, who were the basically the defense, you know, the armed wing of the National Socialists before they actually really fully entrenched themselves in power, 80% of those guys were former Trotskyite communists who just switched sides. Half of them were openly gay. Now, I'm just saying, you know, it's like, you know.
Wait. The brown shirts, half of the brown shirts were openly gay?
Yeah, hell, their leader was Ernst Röhm, and he was known. I mean, he was a very well-known gay man out in the 20s and shit. Didn't give a fuck.
Get the fuck out of here. Well,
that was a hard man. Holy shit. You know, he's very much like a Jack Donovan type, if you're familiar with Jack Donovan.
There's no scarier gays than the German gays.
Those guys. Well, I'd say any strident, angry, uncompromising man can be a little scary. I mean, it's like
but nobody looks scary when he wants to fist your asshole. You know what I mean? It just adds to the scariness.
Oh, yeah, it's like Rob Halford from Judas Priest. I mean, does anybody think that he's like, you know, a shrinking violet little weenie boy? No, when I see him, I think, oh man, when he fucks, there's blood, you know?
Yeah, like
dominating twink boys, just like, don't look at me when you're sucking my cock.
The studded leather fucking those angry fucking those are the gays that I always, you know, with the thick mustache, the fucking 70s look.
Honestly, I have a deep and abiding soft spot in my heart for leather men, of course. You know, I can't help myself because it's, you know, honestly, the body piercing community is branches out. It literally started in the gay S&M scene.
Right. There's an overlap there.
Yes. Oh, it's a huge overlap. I mean, it's a foundational deal. It's kind of like you can't talk about Christianity without talking about Judaism. You can't talk about modern politics or modern piercing without talking about S&M.
Okay, that makes sense. I mean, it kind of goes hand in hand, you know. I mean, it seems kind of S&M-y. S&M-ish.
Well, it certainly used to be, and that's another one of the problems that a lot of us dinosaurs experience is most of us come from that world, but now it's more of a consumer item and a style to just buy and put on. So it's not like lifestyle people or anything like that. It's somebody who's like, oh, it's cute, whatever, and I'm cool with that too. I don't decry that at all. But once again, though, it is an important thing to know and talk about and stuff and understand that, you know, that is part of the reason why I'm not sorry if you had a PG-13 experience at my studio, but you were just expecting G-rated, man. Fuck, you better grow the fuck up, man. This is body piercing, man.
Exactly. Right.
We stab dicks for a living here. What do you
know, I'd like to ask you, going back to that, the controversy that you underwent, it got pretty heated there for a second, not just because of the claims that this client made, but the immediate response by your peers in the industry who seemed to jump all over you over this, right? Like, there was no support.
None. Well, nothing public. I got shit tons of private messages or emails. I don't really get PMs on any social media stuff, but I got tons of emails, phone calls, text, other piercers I know who are like, "Oh man, this is some bullshit, dude. Come on, man. You know, I can't believe they're doing this to you." But it's one of those things that, and you can ask Sativa about this too. About every 3, 4, 5 months or so, man, there's somebody that the body piercing community just, you know, they put them on a donkey and ride them out of town.
Yep. And what's funny is I had actually made, and literally just on my own personal Facebook page, not on my shop page or any of that, I literally had made a post with the first video, JC, that you had made where you were like, "Hey guys, this is what's happening. Like, my career's over," that video. And I shared it, and I just flat out was like, I've seen nothing that really supports this to me. I'm just stating right now, I stand behind JC. And in some of the piercing groups on Facebook and some of the forums and things, because of course it was a hot topic, it was coming up with everybody, because you know that in our industry, a lot of these people are very, very left-leaning people in the piercing industry. And I'll tell you, I got kicked out of so many groups and so many forums because every time it would come up, I was like, "Hey guys, like, if this were any of us, wouldn't you appreciate somebody waiting on, you know, like a little bit of proof before we just completely ostracize this man?" Not even flat out being like, "I believe JC," just for literally suggesting, no shit, that, "Hey guys, maybe if this were us, we'd like somebody to hear our side of it first." I was getting, oh man, I got kicked out of almost every damn piercing forum I was in. No shit.
I'm honestly not terribly surprised.
Neither was I. I kind of knew what I was getting myself into, but I still was like, you know what? At the end of the day, fuck it. Like, at least I stood for something that I actually gave a shit about and believed in today, unlike many of the rest of us.
Yeah, I'm not terribly surprised at all of it too, because it's like, you know, I've been a contentious figure in this community for a while. Honestly, even before I started the videos and stuff, I was known for, you know, honestly having kind of a, you know, just a different perspective. I think I first pissed everybody off the first time when I was at conference and we were talking. We were in a class. And I was like, "Well, hey, you know, what about?" Oh, it was surface anchors and piercing, the surface bars and anchors class. And I was like, "Well, hey, why not? How come we don't talk about biopsy punches here? Because shit, you know, that's one of the best ways of doing them and stuff." And oh, no, we don't talk about biopsy punches. And I'm like, "Well, why the fuck not?" You know, like that doesn't make any sense to me. It's like this is a technique. It gets done. Why don't we cover this? And it's like, "Oh, well, we don't endorse it." And it's like, "Well, why the fuck not?" You know, once again, you're not giving me reasons. You're just saying no. And it's like, that's never a good thing for me. So I was combative about that. And then in the minerals and in the gold and gemstones class, of course, the very predictable side cut, overweight, you know, kind of like, you know, jumps up, and we're talking about diamonds. And of course, she jumps up and she's like, "Oh, guys, you need to make sure to only be sure to buy your diamonds from legitimate sources so that you don't get blood diamonds." And I'm like, "Get the fuck out of here with your blood diamond bullshit, man. Blood diamonds aren't real. There is no such thing as a quote unquote blood diamond. What you are.
What do you mean by that?
Okay, I was about to say what, and this is why people get angry at me. Because I point out that, oh, that's a very, very terribly Eurocentric point of view to call that a blood diamond, you sorry cocksucker. What you're talking about is actual indigenous peoples digging up the minerals under their fucking feet and using it to cast off their oppressors. If that's a fucking problem, then fuck you. I don't have any problem. I literally have no problem with it, man. Got no problem with it.
Okay, so I guess
sure diamonds conflict, but you know what? Everything funds fucking conflict. What am I going to do? I don't give a shit. It's a shiny fucking rock. Who cares? Buy it or don't.
Oh, I remember that. I forgot that it was also called a conflict diamond.
Yeah,
so here's my question, because I always understood that the reason that they were called that or considered or given a negative connotation was because it had to do with the exploitation from other countries coming in and using people to dig those up and then not really exploiting not only people but the resources. Yeah,
you mean like the beers? You know, that's basically exactly what's going on and stuff.
My understanding is that there's no such thing as a diamond that isn't a blood diamond or conflict diamond.
And that's what. That was my.
Okay, so we're on the same page.
It's like, if you guys like fucking diamonds, then shut up and buy them, because somebody's getting fucked one way or the other on that deal.
Exactly.
But also, make some money one way or another on the deal. And okay, and even if you say no, I'll just buy cubic zirconia. Whatever, man. You're still saying, you're tacitly approving the use of these things by saying, oh well, I like it enough that I like the look of it. It's like eating fake meat if you're a vegan. No, shut up and eat the fucking vegetables. You don't get to eat fake meat.
Hey, did you know that there's a human meat substitute made out of like a meat byproduct? I don't know if it's made out of soy or tofu, but I think it might be. And it's called hufu. It's supposed to taste like human meat.
Then just use pork.
What?
Just use pork. Every cannibal will tell you that we taste like bittersweet pork. So I hear.
From what I understand, that's what the islanders who would eat people that were cannibals. Their nickname for people.
Long pork. Yeah.
Long pork. Yeah.
One of my favorite African warlords from the Liberian Civil War was a guy. He's still alive. He was known as General Butt Naked. He would ride out into battle and just kick the shit out of everybody. He had an army of child soldiers, real mean motherfucker. He ate so many people that he started to develop a preference for cuts. He said that the ribs are the best part.
I've heard ribs and cheeks. Yeah.
I want to pick out all that type of stuff.
If you had the opportunity to eat human meat, would you?
Yes.
Oh,
yes.
God, no. No, absolutely not.
I love those two different answers. That's so great. Yeah.
Well, I have my dad's foot.
You got a fervent yes and a fucking oh God, no.
That was way too enthusiastic on Face's part.
You know, if I wanted to, it wouldn't be hard for me to do it at all. I have human meat in my freezer, but I'm not going to eat it. Well, I'm not a sicko.
Why do you have human meat in your freezer?
Well, my dad had his foot amputated, and I was like, well, what the fuck are you going to do with that foot, old man? And he's like, fucking nothing. You want it? And I'm like, fuck yeah, I do. And he's like, cool, take it.
Oh my God, that's amazing.
Oh yeah, I did a video about it.
So you have your father's foot, amputated foot, in your freezer. How long's it been there?
About 2 years right now, maybe 3. I keep getting distracted, so I haven't had a chance to mummify it properly yet, because I've got a whole art plan for it. Do you know what a reliquary is? It's a box that holds a saint, and I want to make a reliquary for my dad's foot. Out of gold
for pieces of saints. So it would hold like a finger or maybe a mummified heart.
Right, exactly. And so I want to put my dad's mummified foot inside of I want to make a foot shaped, an anthropomorphic reliquary, only kind of faceted with glass and silver and gold and all these. I've got a shit ton of gemstones I've been collecting over about 5 years for a project, and I didn't know what I was going to do with it. And then Dad had to get his foot
fucking cool as shit.
And perfect timing. I'm going to call it the Immaculate Foot of St. Jimmy.
Yeah. Yes.
Oh yeah, I'm disturbed, but I'm just not the type that would eat a person, you know.
Do you ever take it out and show it to people?
No, I haven't. Honestly, it's
Really?
yeah, you know, well, it's sure I can be a little exploitative as far as like the shock value of using my dad's foot for something like that, but still, though, it's you know, I am still human. I mean, it's got a certain degree of privacy that I do, and besides, I don't really receive that many visitors at my own home. I go home, and that's like my little sanctuary and shit.
Same. So I have to ask you, JC, based on the conversation, and this popped up for me when you were talking about your favorite warlord, which, by the way, I would just like to point out how much I love that you have one of those.
Well, he's not my actual favorite warlord. He's just my favorite warlord from the Liberian Civil War.
That's even better. Oh my God, man, you're spectacular.
Warlord, do you include?
Okay, you dropped out for a second. My other favorite, my actual favorite kind of warlord type is Neil Ellis.
Ooh.
I know nobody's ever heard of him. He's known as the gunship ace. Oh my God, he's got the most amazing story ever.
Huh. Well, out of what? From where?
Like he basically he's still out there fighting, man. Apparently, he's fighting Boko Haram in Nigeria right now.
For who? Hello?
Oh no, it sounds like everybody's gone. Is everybody here or am I gone?
No,
I'm here.
Yeah, we're still here. I'm sorry. Perhaps I cut out. I had asked for who? Who does he fight for?
We still here?
Yeah.
Can you hear us?
Ooh, I don't think JC can hear us at this point.
Yeah, I don't think he can.
He might have. I did earlier.
I guess I can't hear anybody actually right now, so I'm assuming that I'm still here and I'll still keep talking.
Yeah, we can hear you. I would recommend. I'm gonna try and type to him. I would recommend that you restart everything.
You might also suggest to him that he check and make sure he didn't hit the mute us button, because I did that earlier, not gonna lie.
Okay, make sure he didn't accidentally hit the mute button?
Yeah, because you can mute the sound coming to you.
All right. I don't know if he's reading the chat or not. Is he still in here? No, I think. Oh, here he comes. He just came back, so I'm gonna unmute him. Oh, I love technical difficulties. JC, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you guys. Can you hear me?
Yeah, you can hear us?
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, cool. My question to you is, who is this? I'm sorry, what was his name again? Nielsen?
Oh, yeah, Neil Ellis. Neal Ellis.
Who's he fighting for? You said he's fighting Boko Haram, which I'm all for because they kill
He's a mercenary. He's basically a mercenary. Yeah, he'll fight anybody. He doesn't give a. I can't say he doesn't give a fuck, but he'll fight anybody.
Who's paying him to fight Boko Haram?
Don't know. Good question. I know that he's wound up working for French intelligence, for a bunch of different governments.
Okay. So when you say you have favorite warlords, do you have favorite generals throughout history and things like that too?
Oh yeah, no, I love all kind. I've always gotten a kind of a kick out of really realistically, man, world history is military history. So they're kind of intrinsically tied. So yeah, I love a lot of that type of shit.
You know what? I think I might have cut off Sativa. I think she might have had a question, and I didn't realize. Sativa, if I cut you off at all, please step back in and come back in and ask your question. If I did cut you off, it was totally by accident.
No, you're good. I was actually just going to ask, based on the fact that he is into sort of that sort of thing, do you, JC, happen to have a favorite serial killer?
Let's see. Not so much serial killer, because honestly, serial killers are, generally they're kind of like perverts and kind of sad people usually.
Fair.
Uh, but God, yeah, no, I don't really have a truly favorite serial killer. The Zodiac's pretty interesting because he's never actually been fully figured out. But no, I'd be more interested if we were talking about killers. I'm more interested in like mass killers rather than serial killers.
Okay. See, and I'm totally the opposite, but I feel that.
Yeah, it's just a different mindset. I mean, as far as the methodical spree killer is every bit as crafty and deviant as the prolific serial killer. It's just a different strategy, a different way of going about it. Instead of trying to get a high score sequentially, you're getting one all at once.
Right. That's fair. It's definitely two different worlds for sure.
Well, but also serial killers have had a certain degree of playing up with pop culture and stuff over the last 20, 30 years, where spree killers, not so much, because a lot of them have other motivations.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, and that's it. I guess a lot of times with mass murder, it's usually relating less to the individual and much more to sort of a full ideology, as it were.
Yes, and I think that's probably the thing that separates, in my mind, the difference, the idea of an ideological driven deal versus trying to get your rocks off because you hate women or whatever the fuck those people's problem is.
Fair enough. And that said, actually, which leads into a question I was going to ask you earlier. I was going to ask you, because you strike me as quite the reader. I imagine that you read a fair deal in your off time, if you have any. Have you ever read Industrial Society and Its Future?
Oh, yes. No, I'm a big fan of Uncle Ted.
I am so happy about that right now. You don't even know. I love it.
Once again, Kaczynski, though, is he's not a serial killer, and he's not even true.
No, God.
He was doing everything for a political and sociological, ideological basis and stuff. He was literally, I believe misguided because, his idea that the technology was going to ruin us. And I don't necessarily see that the tech will ruin it. I think the tech will actually liberate us. And I have an argument, and I have a solid argument to make behind that too, actually.
Okay.
Well, and it also ties into the idea of what to do with us, with the pasty people out there. I listen to folks and I believe them when they have told me that, hey, you people don't live like everybody else, man. You fought each other for 2,000 fucking years and you stripped all the resources out of Europe. And when everything was used up in Europe, y'all set sail all around the world looking for shit to take. And you went and took stuff, and then you took it and weaponized it. First thing you did. And I'm like, well, okay, yeah, all that shit seems to be pretty accurate. I agree with you on that. And I will agree too when they say that a lot of indigenous folks could theoretically live for a millennia or two with in total harmony with nature and stuff like that. Yeah, okay, I hear that too. But you know what? Problem is with all that is Earth is not a closed system. We are actually floating. We're not floating. We're whizzing through space. It's something like 60,000 miles an hour or some shit like that. And there's all kinds of things out there, like the Apophis asteroid and other kind of celestial bodies that sometimes go across our orbit. If we interact with one of those, everybody goes back to square one. Everybody. It's not just. It doesn't just fuck us and the high tech people. It also fucks the indigenous people. It fucks everybody. It kills everything. But and while the indigenous peoples may be able, that live, hunter gatherer type lifestyles or subsistence farming lifestyles, Sure, they might be able to continue that lifestyle for until the asteroid comes, but the asteroid comes and wipes them out too.
Well, can I interject? I just want to add to what you're saying real quick. I think it's kind of a joke, really, to think that everything was in harmony prior to us fucking setting sail and showing up. Like, they weren't all fucking killing each other for the same fucking reasons. They just did it with sticks and stones instead of fucking explosives and bullets.
Of course. The whole myth of the notable sound is just that. It's a myth.
It's a myth.
It's just a story.
Total farce.
It's just a story. But one way or the other, though, like I said, our that hallmark, that technology, that innovation and that strive, that competition, that look, we're using up everything here, and so we're looking at space. Okay, two things come from us branching out into space. One of those is a reduction of the amount of competition for resource on this planet. Most of the conflict that comes from being on people's trying to get access to the same resources. If we don't have to worry about that anymore, well, then that reduces the amount of overall conflict. Also,
which is why we should learn how to, we should invest time, effort, and money into figuring out how to mine asteroids.
Absolutely. I consider that to be one of the highest priorities of mankind as it stands right now. The other one is the fact that if we develop the technology sufficiently to be able to mine asteroids and recover the wealth from it, then we will absolutely be able to steer and deflect them. So if that's the case, then that gives us the opportunity to give a technological shield to the planet as our home base, to where, okay, we're not going to have to worry about getting wiped out by a comet or an asteroid or any shit like that. And now we can continue. That saves everybody. That doesn't just save us, that saves everybody. So while I say that, yes, that my lefty friends are correct when they say that, yeah, we're different, we don't live like everybody else, yeah, our lifestyle is unsustainable. Yeah, no shit, I can tell. But if we keep the pedal to the metal and we develop the technology enough, it can save all of humankind. And I feel like that's an important thing. Now, if it was a case that we weren't existing in a closed system or in an open system like this, then I'd say, fuck it, get rid of us.
Well, and that's kind of where I'm a little torn when it comes to globalization, because on one hand, there's a definite benefit to trying to get everyone on the planet to kind of unite and have the same goals and work towards the same goals. I see that as a good thing, but on the same front, or on the flip side of the same coin, I should say, there's some detriment to that. As we're seeing, these efforts towards globalization are leading to the elimination of certain cultures. You're having conflicts that didn't exist. It's not working.
No, well, I mean, I guess it depends on perspective. Some people think it's working fine, but some people have other ideas, and that in and of itself is where we're running into, because it used to be, there was the idea, say 150 years ago, that yeah, we were going to globalize the planet, but we were just going to do it a little differently. Now it's more, I get it. I understand. There's two competing thoughts for the idea of how to unify the planet. Incidentally, this is why Pangea piercing has the name of Pangea piercing, is because it's a double entendre about all that. It's the world was once unified and will be again. And what it looks like, though, kind of all depends on us.
Right, like the singular landmass Pangea, which you can also parallels to the Tower of Babel.
Yes, or the story of Atlantis, or any of that type of stuff. There's a lot of old myths that are trying to tell us something.
Right. We were unified, we divided, and the goal now is to reunify.
Yes, as one people. And we will at some point. And After that happens, we will separate again. It is the only thing that is sure. Entropy cannot be negotiated with. All systems break down. All systems change. And so while right now we have a multipolar world, that I change. Now, probably not in our lifetimes or anything like that, but eventually, yes. Now, beyond that, though, once that is the dominant paradigm, of course, there's going to be some boat rocking assholes that come along like me and are going to be like, oh, well, hey, I don't know if this paradigm is really all that good. And they're going to change it.
Well, I think the issue is trying to walk that fine line between individuality and conformity, because that's the real issue. I think that's where the conflict that I see is coming from when it comes to globalization, is that globalization is kind of blurring the lines, and it seems like, I don't know if it's just naturally if you make that your goal, that it's a byproduct of that goal, the loss of individuality, or if that's the chosen path in which they've deigned to attempt globalization. But it does seem like the idea is to get us all marching in step, pun intended, and individuality is kind of taking a back seat. And I see the struggle from when I see Poland and Hungary fighting against the EU, when it comes to things like the mass immigration and struggling to maintain their culture, and in their nationalism, which in my opinion is if you look at countries as individuals, as people, they're trying to say, like, I do things my way. I want to continue to maintain my individual freedom to do things that way. And I see no problem with that. And in fact, I see that as being imperative. I think that's part of what it is to be human. And I think it needs to be preserved. And the question is, how do you preserve that and maintain a unification? I don't know.
Boy, that's the $1 million question, isn't it?
Right?
I don't think
How do you walk the fence?
Ooh, that gets into the territory that I won't talk about. Holy moly!
Did I just find the shit that you won't talk about?
I mean, I'll talk about it, but I'll stay with the accepted party lines on everything on that, man. You start getting into some real shit territory, and I mean, no joke. There are
a conversation that really hard, though, because we're not going to, if we don't have that conversation about how do you maintain individual freedom, not just as an individual yourself, but culturally individual, and at the same time group together for that unification, so that we're as a people, planet wide, all working towards the same goals. How do you combine those two things and keep a harmony between them?
Well, what I can say on that is that the only way that, if this is the world that you want, if we do want to have a globally connected world where people are generally working together towards some sort of relevant goal, then there's only two scenarios that allow for that. Either A, you basically have one mass of people, which is the one technique that I do believe that is the thought right now, the idea of blending everybody into one kind of rootless mass.
I so desperately disagree with that. I'm not saying that you're wrong, that's an option. I disagree with that particular choice. I think it's absolutely wrong.
Well, I don't disagree with you there either, but that's the technique that I think is being used. The other one, though, would be to, for people to relatively respect each other, and for us to have, an equal playing field of like, hey, look, if it's good for the goose, it's good for the gander. If some groups are going to be looking out for their best interest, then all groups have to be looking out for the best interest. If there's a few that are and a few that aren't, well, the ones that are going to win. The ones that aren't are going to lose. And that's real simple. So,
Sure.
That's the other way is to only have, the other way is instead of trying to blend everybody into a shapeless mass and all that is to just basically only have one group left standing. And, there's people hard at work on all three scenarios. None of them look really nice at the end of the day, because the truth is okay, the shapeless mass scenario won't happen. People are intrinsically more concerned with their own families than with other people's families. And this is
why, if I may, I'd like to say, this is why I feel that it is imperative that we develop life extending technologies or advancements, because and that's really not a question of if so much as when. It's an inevitability, but we need to develop that as quickly as we can, because our perspective, if we can extend the average human life to say 500 years, 1,000. If we can do that, and we will, the perspective changes drastically. I mean, think about wars and how long they last and how much they cost. Imagine if you lived to be 500 years or 1,000 years on average. Would you risk your life for a cause that if you just wait it out in 10 years it'll be gone and done? Like, it will change human perspective completely, and I think we need that.
It would, only to a certain point, up to the point that you still retain breeding viability. Humans are one of 4 species on the planet that experience menopause. And that is a huge thing about a huge dynamic inside in the interactions that we have.
Please elaborate on that. Why is that?
Why would that matter?
Why does that matter?
If you live 500 years, guess what? You still are born with the same number of eggs. You're still going to wind up having menopause at about 38 to 45.
I see what you're saying. Are you sure that that'll still happen? I mean, if we do develop life extending, it's not like you're going to continue to age. It will extend your life and extend your youth as well.
Depends on how that is. If you still menstruate every month and you still lose an egg every month and you still wind up having, a finite number, like it or not, in the last, say, 20 or 30 of them that come out are generally kind of pickled and old anyway. This is part of the reason why you see, autism and birth defects getting so dramatically higher, from 35 to 40. If you have a child at 35, I think you have a 1 in 12 or 1 in 20 chance of having a child who's autistic. If you wait till you're 40, you have a 1 in 6 chance.
Right. But the reason for that is because of the breakdown in your DNA and your RNA, which is tied into sort of a timer, as it were. When your cellular structure hits a certain age, there's a switch, as it were, a genetic switch that says, hey, you've hit this point. So now we're going to start to break down. A 38-year-old
egg is not going to be as good as a 15-year-old egg.
And again, that's because of the cellular breakdown.
Well, that's
your body's breaking. So if you can make advancements in preventing that cellular breakdown, your RNA and your DNA reproducing Xerox copies of itself every 7 years. All of your, which is another strange question. If every 7 years cellularly, all of your cells are brand new, how are you?
That's a good question. If an atom is 99.9% empty space, then how is anything solid?
Exactly.
You know?
So these
you're hitting on some real deep shit right there, honestly. So, it's a real deep topic, actually. Indeed, and nobody knows the mechanism as to why is it that you retain your memories, you retain all this stuff, it stays the same, even though your body does regenerate and stuff. That's also, but all those are also arguments that really don't even need to be happening as it already stands right now. Human lifespan has grown in the 20th century. Human lifespan increased.
Oh yeah,
and
give him healthy, give him a healthy diet, give him access to good health care.
Medicine.
During Shakespeare's time, a 15-year-old was considered a fully grown adult.
A young man. At 18, 19, you were a grown man.
Right. If you were 30, you were old.
Yes. You were expected to be hoping to have grandchildren pretty soon at 30.
Right.
Yeah. But in the process, though, of us extending our lifespans as it is, old people already have so much stuff. I don't know very many people over the age of 65 who aren't millionaires. They have tons and tons and tons of shit. As it stands right now, we are over-consuming. The number of people that we have. If we have even more of them living even longer. See, I would argue, though, that, and this is one of those things, this will probably get my haters to be like, oh, my God, I can't believe he said this. I don't think the answer is more people living longer. I think the answer is
no. Fewer people.
Maybe not
those people who. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I would say that maybe a better solution might be not so many fucking people. As it is, we've grown the planet's population by so much, by alleviating hunger and by alleviating so many sicknesses, so many places. And, I don't know how old you are, but I'm old enough to remember USA for Africa. We are the world.
Oh, yeah.
We are the children. All that bullshit. And at that point, yeah. At that, Ethiopia had something like 23 million people, and they were starving then. And now,
we have at any given time in the world today, there's 1 billion people starving. 1 billion people.
Yeah, but one way or the other, my point being is that now the current population of Ethiopia is something like 79 million or some shit like that.
Well, globally, our population growth is unsustainable, and people want to claim that there's plenty of room. There's plenty, we just need to spread out. We're fine. No. Resources are finite, and let's talk about the fact that we didn't reach 1 billion people on the planet until 1802. If you believe in evolution, that means it took man anywhere from 80,000 to 100,000 years to reach 1 billion people on the planet. It took another 200 years to fucking add 6 billion to that. That is exponential growth to a point that is it's undeniable how unsustainable that is.
Oh yeah. Already is a point where the oceans are toxifying. There's garbage islands in the ocean.
People are bitching about straws. It's ridiculous.
We're literally stripping the planet bare of all kinds of important shit that we're going to need in the future. And honestly, it gets to where you have some hard questions to ask about this. And this is one of those things that it's, a lot of my worldview and ideology has been shaped by the interactions I've had with quite a few of the very well-educated people up here at the University of Michigan and then in general. And I talk to our environmental friends, the environmental engineers, the environmental, everybody who's studying environmental sciences and stuff like that. And let me tell you that when I talk about that, I talk about stuff with them and I'd be like, we all know there's too many fucking people. And they'll be like, yep, we do. And I'm like, does anybody got this? Oh, but here's the thing is if you think everybody thinks my fucking rhetoric is horrifying, fuck you. Go talk to the environmentalists and shit. These people openly talk about killing 3-4 billion people. This is no conspiracy. This is no secret. This is no thing. They just don't put it in GC direct speak. They dress it up. They'll take 10 minutes to say the same thing. It's like, oh, you just want to kill 4 billion people. Okay, cool. I just say it fast. They say it in a much more careful and measured and politically correct ways. But at the end of the day, it still looks like killing off a large portion of the planet.
Oh yeah, they talk. There's seminars. I've watched YouTube videos of recordings of seminars where this is discussed in they talk about soft kills as opposed to hard kills.
Oh yeah,
soft kills would be.
Oh yeah, soft population reduction versus hard population reduction. You know what it's like? Yeah, I do.
Yeah, I forget. Bill Gates. Bill Gates did a TED talk where he openly. I mean, he doesn't say it directly, but he talks about the population density and the growth and how to avert that and he said we either have to prevent it or another option is and he essentially says it without saying it, like, look, we don't have the ability. Some of you got to go. See, you gotta go.
That's and like I said, when you got people like Bill Gates and whatever various enviro weenies and shit talking about all this stuff, boy, I'm telling you, you got to pay attention. They're not
exactly.
They're not kidding.
Which also brings into question, though, and this is where my crackpot conspiracy theorist side comes into play. When you think about our population density, you talk about the environmentalists being openly, open with their rhetoric about there's too many goddamn people, and you talk about Bill Gates having a TED talk where he flat out agrees with that. Then you think about the fact that he has invested time and effort into
genetically modified mosquitoes and stuff. Yeah.
Well, and vaccines and medical treatment, and you hear these rumors or you hear these things about how they're being used as tests for human cocktails, medical cocktails that are supposed to either make people sterile or things like that. And that's not all that far-fetched when you consider we tested that here at home.
Oh yeah, there's been a few times that the World Health Organization has gotten in trouble because they quote unquote accidentally shipped tons of contraceptive engineered corn to third world countries.
Jesus Christ. Are you talking about corn that you eat and it turns you sterile?
Not permanently, but it has contraceptive effects. Yes.
I'm curious to know what the contraceptive effect is and what's causing that. Is that saltpeter?
Don't look at me. No. It has something to do with the genetic. It's actually a genetically engineered organism. I'm not sure exactly. I don't have my notes in front of me, and it's somewhat above my pay grade. Mm-hmm. But it's one of those things that it's one way or the other. Even all of it in totality, if you look and you read and you pay any kind of attention at all, it's kind of hard to ignore.
Of course. It just, and then you tie that into, or add to that, you take all that and you consider the idea that that white people are a global minority, and you have this burst of, and you take the contrast in the Western world, which is primarily European, primarily Caucasian, primarily white. You take into consideration the birth rates are declining in almost everywhere that is, Western European, white, Anglo-Saxon countries, and you take into consideration that you have this exponential growth, the human population globally, and then you see these mass migrations and these refugee crises. It just kind of makes you wonder what the fuck is going on, and then to treat
It'll certainly make you feel like you're an expert in forestry, and you're looking around and going, guys, there sure is a lot of fucking dead brush piling up. Maybe we should pay attention to that. There could be a fire.
Well, and then you tie into, you take all of that and you use that, looking through that lens, you look at the dehumanization efforts that are going on regarding whites, at least here in this country, and it seems the same abroad in Western Europe. And you see to normalize that dehumanization, and it just it's hard not to understand how somebody can have or believe in a conspiracy theory where it seems whites are under attack, as it were.
Well, here's the rub. At the end of the day, it doesn't even matter if that is real or not. What matters is the perception. And if you have a measurable percentage of, the European folks, either the post-colonial diaspora or the nation states of Europe, if a measurable proportion of those, if a significant proportion of those people believe that, then, buddy, it doesn't matter if it's real or not. It should be the same as if it was. It doesn't matter. Is what people believe. And people already need the people of Uganda. Hell, I mean, we could just replace them all with Chinese people, and as long as they eat midge cakes and do the shit like that, do the dances and sing the songs and stuff, well, what's the fucking difference? And it's like, well, I don't know. I think there might be a difference. I'm fairly certain that Chinese folks, when they moved to Africa, they live kind of like how they did back in China. I'm pretty
exactly.
I know that the Chinese enclaves that are being built in Africa certainly look like everything you see in modern China. They live like China. They bring Chinese employees, and that's fine. I don't give a shit. I'm just observing. The truth is, though, is I don't believe, and I don't think that most people believe, that culture and the people that are associated with that culture are somehow able to be separated. I just don't see that, honestly. I use the example of my own ethnic group as part of that. I'm Scots-Irish, which is a social construct. Yes, it's not an actual, a bit of a, it's a hard one because we only, the identity of Scots-Irish only exists in the United States. Back in the UK, they're known as Ulstermen. In Australia, you just called a daft cunt. But they exist all over the place. We're a borderland people and an oppressed people. And as soon as they, basically as soon as we had our feet underneath us and we're able to get a hold of some fucking guns, we got a hold of them and never going to turn loose of them and shit because, well, we have issues with folks. It's a different mindset. The mindset comes though from 1,000 years of oppression and not being willing to go back into bondage. That's just how that is. I view the Civil War, the American Civil War, sure, slavery, big part of it. States' rights, yeah, big part of it. Another big part of it is the fact, though.
But you're racist for saying that. You're racist for acknowledging that. If you say that there was any other reason for the Civil War to have taken place other than slavery, you're absolutely racist.
Yeah, but who gives a fuck, man? Those people can suck my balls. I don't even care. My point with it is that you could. I make the argument that you had Anglos in the Northeast and in the North that they were the wealthy people, and then you had the Scots-Irish in the South who were poor people, and they were getting there's a lot of animosity there going back to hell before we even got here, back in the UK. And so, well, those ethnic rivalries continue on. It's not like they stop or anything like that,
No.
So like it or not, one way or the other, groups exist. They are real. And, you can't just, like I said, you couldn't get redneck American culture if you'd brought, Indonesians here and let them sit here for 200 years and stew in their own juices and stuff like that. You wouldn't get like modern Appalachian culture out of that. You would get something different.
No,
I'm not saying that's bad or good. I'm just saying it'd be different, and that's fine. That's fine. Because, honestly, I think if we did take, 150 million, pasty Americans and stuck them stuck them in Indonesia, it would definitely change the cultural fabric of the place. Like, I'm just saying, and so, it's desirable.
And that's because you're taking a culture and placing it into another culture. So you're ultimately going to have a blending.
If that's desirable, then fine. Okay. But if it's not, then okay, talk about that. If we don't want, it seems to be the only people that they only have a problem with colonialism when it's European folks that do it. The last I checked, half of Turkey sits on half of Greece.
There's no civilization that wasn't built on the destruction of a civilization prior.
I don't know. The Czechs have been pretty stable for about 1,000 years over there or something. It's their kingdom kind of arose somewhat naturally out of just from best I can tell and stuff. And they have natural geographic borders too. They have mountains and rivers that kind of hem them in. The Czechs have never been out there. They never colonized. They never conquered anybody. They never did any shit like that. They built their own little fucking kingdom. They wound up allying with the Moravians like 400 years ago or some shit like that. And that's the modern quote unquote Czech people.
And that may be true, but that's definitely an exception to the rule.
Well, yeah, but even like Japan, I mean, hell, there was an indigenous group of people there before the modern Japanese were and stuff. And that's nothing wrong with this. That's not my point. My point is that you get reactions from people, from groups of people, because everybody is looking out for their own interests, both individually and collectively.
Yes.
Like, it's just how it is. Life is one big game of musical chairs, and it ain't nothing personal, but when the music stops, you're going to get on that fucking chair. You're going to do your damn best to, and it's like, it could even be your homie there that you're playing with, but if there's one chair and two guys going for it, sorry, homie.
Would you say then that the only way for a utopian society in which we all unify peacefully and in harmony, the only way for that to exist is to have access to infinite resources?
Well, even then, though, it won't happen. I don't believe, honestly, because they're, you don't
think that the finite resource, because isn't that ultimately the issue? The finite resources. We're fighting for what little there is.
It's one aspect. And I mean, a very, very important one, but only one. It would never eliminate competition. It would never eliminate strife. It would never eliminate all that stuff if you just had unlimited access to everything.
Well, because aggression is part of human nature.
Let's look at modern day America, okay? You're talking with upper class people who don't want for anything. They still compete with each other. They still fight with each other. It's
again, human nature. Competition. Part of that aggressive nature. We're animals.
Yes. No, yeah, that's the thing is, honestly, human evolution is quite slow. Technology moves quite fast. We are never going to catch up to the tech.
Not the singularity.
Yeah, it's that's I know a lot of folks are trying for that, and is it possible? I don't know. At that point, I think that we wouldn't actually.
I don't think it's not just possible. I think it's kind of inevitable. Like, especially considering the if you consider over the last 150 years just how exponentially fast technology is advancing now as opposed to just 100 years ago. Think of the turn of the last century, right? 1900. The biggest technological advancement at the time was probably flight, right?
Yeah. Say, well, flight didn't actually even start being, much of a thing until the
It wasn't really I'd say it was a turning point, but it was one that didn't really affect for another 20 years.
Most transportation in 1900 was done either by horse, train, yeah,
and ships,
trains and steamships, yeah.
Yeah. So, the next technological advancement, the big one, was what? after planes became such a prominent thing. I would say
atomic weaponry,
jet engines.
I would say atomic power, and then after that,
atomic power. You're right.
I would say reliable chemical contraception.
There you go. So, but the time frame between advancements back then was what? Anywhere from 20 to 50 years in between major glowing technological advancements. I mean, the time frame between those types of technological advancements now is way different. Like we're seeing it's practically a daily change now. And at some point.
Wait for artificial intelligence to start doing it.
That's what the singularity is about. It is about the point when technology is advancing at such a high rate that it begins to take over its own advancement itself. As I understand it, that's what the singularity point is. It's when technology comes to a point where it advances so quickly that it just says, I got it from here.
Yeah, and that's where the real, and honestly, that's where, the guy who owns the house, I don't have a technical next door neighbor because a cool neighborhood that doesn't really have that many people in it. But the man who does own the next house down the street, he's a tenured professor at Center for Creative Studies, and he mostly deals with machine learning and artificial intelligence. And we have some conversations and stuff, here and there.
That's awesome.
And terribly interesting fella. But the real danger occurs not so much of us merging with the machines, is more what the machines are going to decide when they are not bound with guilt or emotion or anything like that. It is already a situation. Los Angeles had rolled out a program where they were using artificial intelligence to try to allocate police resources more effectively. And immediately, oh God, it's racist because it says, to send all these people over here to this neighborhood and stuff. And so they deliberately took race out of the consideration for the AI decision-making factors. It found other ways. It started saying, so you need to deploy more officers to neighborhoods that have walk-up chicken stands and sell an extraordinary amount of or a statistically higher percentage of menthol cigarettes. I shit you not. It found its own correlations with it and stuff. And they're like, the robot's just making racist dog whistles now. And it's like, dude, no, it doesn't understand. It's not programmed for that. It's programmed to look at this data and spit out an idea, and that's what it does.
Essentially, statistics aren't racist. Math isn't racist. And people, I just recently did this where I said that in a group. I got kicked from a group for fucking saying that. They were talking about how black fathers. I think they were talking about the single motherhood rate, and how any white person who brings that up as an issue related to the pay gap or the any of the issues that blacks suffer from and face today are basically just being racist. And all I said was, statistics aren't racist. And they went absolutely ballistic. They fucking went ape shit. And of course, Nazi, racist, fucking cracker ass white, all kinds of shit. I was given the right, and then I was kicked from the fucking group.
This is the thing that I find really funny, because I hear a lot of folks talking about how, we don't want to compromise. We don't want to listen to the right. We don't want to listen to any of these people at all. No compromise. And I'm like, when you go to fight these people, your team is the ones that collapse into a little puddle of quivering shit when somebody uses the wrong fucking pronoun on you, or when somebody calls you a mean word or something like that, or uses a slur against you. You just go apoplectic, man. Fuck, you don't have a chance against these motherfuckers.
No, when it comes down to it. And that's why, it's amazing to me when they talk about Civil War. It's like, you guys realize you're on the losing side of that. If you had an actual
Not necessarily so. We make that assumption because we consider we're looking at it from an ideological standpoint. Where, yeah, if that's the case, then sure, you wind up getting they just get molashed. But it's not necessary. There's decided ethnic components to it too. Quite a few of your quote unquote, lefty people are not actually politically left at all. It's just they're looking out for their own interests and stuff. It's like, honestly, if if you've been involved with like the black community a bunch, you find out that actually those folks aren't really all that liberal in a lot of respects, man. They're still real big on God and family, and they don't necessarily jive with our gay friends as much. Right,
I see what you're saying. I think it depends on whether you're talking like geographically where you're talking about. I mean, if you're talking about the South, then sure. But I'll tell you what. If you're talking about blacks here in California, where I'm at,
well, California is a different thing altogether. I mean, God, it's not even America. Holy shit, man. We need to. I've been lobbying. I send emails to Trump all the time of like, when you build the wall, just make a north turn there at Arizona. Just kind of run. Can we just give them?
I hope if he does, he'll give us notice so that I can fucking move out first, because I'm not staying here.
No. All you motherfuckers in California have to stay there. Fuck you people, man. You keep running.
All right, well, that's the end of this fucking conversation. Thanks for joining us tonight. Fuck this guy.
No, you seem cool, but man, we've just learned our lesson, man. I say, how about this?
I'm a pariah. Trust me, I'm a pariah in my own fucking state. I can't stand it here.
I can imagine, but it's one of those ones. I feel like, okay, maybe with some extreme vetting or something like that, we can allow some to leave.
That's fair. I'll go with that. That's a deal.
There's good people on both sides.
Oh, that's pretty good. You know what? I usually talk too long and I come to the I don't give enough time for a question Q&A section, and we're already at 2 hours and 20 minutes. So I hope I'm not cutting you off or anything, but I'd like to take a moment now to go ahead and give those who are listening, if there's any questions. Adam, my co-host, usually is the one who runs through the questions. So Adam, do we have any questions?
We do, but I'm actually going to let Metalface do the first one.
Actually, Metalface, okay, yeah, perfect. I was going to say, if she wants to ask
it's her question, that's why.
Okay, great.
And I figure
I defer to you. Metalface, take it away.
Awesome. So, JC, we have started a little tradition on this show of asking this question to all of our esteemed guests. We want to know, what is your favorite dinosaur?
Ooh, my favorite dinosaur? I probably like the whoa, shit. That damn it, they had to put me on the fucking spot. Big armored fish. What is it? Dunkleosteus.
Yes. Oh my God, that's amazing.
Motherfucker, that thing's terrifying. Holy shit.
That's crazy, like blade teeth.
I'm sorry?
Yeah. I said the ones like with the aren't those the ones that have like the crazy blade teeth? It's like a bony jaw.
Yes, like a big turtle head, essentially, man. They just chop you.
Oh, I think that's probably one of the best answers we've gotten. I'm not gonna lie. That's amazing.
Yeah. Definitely a little different than your standard Tyrannosaurus Rex or whatever, or Dimetrodon or
Oh, so cool. See, I told you guys, best question ever.
All right. Well, so the other traditional question that we ask everyone is, can you say "The South will rise again" in your best Southern accent?
I think that was probably the best one, guys, that we've had.
I didn't get it at all.
I actually am legitimately Southern. If I get a little more comfortable with folks, I'll wind up mode switching pretty good. I don't know if you ever heard the term mode switching. It's kind of like what a lot of my friends do when the police show up, man. Now all of a sudden they turn into fucking road scholars. All of a sudden they'd be like, yes sir, no sir, all this shit. No, man, when I get real comfortable, man, I'll be like, fuck yeah, let's wash the truck, go to town, and goddamn right, the South will rise again. Now I'm gonna get in trouble, man, because everybody's gonna be like, he was on this podcast and he was talking about how the South will rise. Oh my
You want to know something funny? Here's the funny thing. I got a real kick out of this. I had a friend on. We interviewed a friend of mine. He's a pimp, and obviously a black guy. And
obviously, what the hell?
Wait, there's not. It's not a negative. I'm not saying that they're bad because obviously pimps. Because pimps are bad, so obviously they're black. I'm saying whites don't know how to be pimps. Blacks are just better at it.
Well, honestly, man, I'll say pimping is more of a lifestyle. It's not even really. It's not about even being a man, being a woman, being black, being hard.
I agree, but there's more black pimps than there are white pimps.
Yeah, I don't know, man. Shoot. It depends on what level you're at. You get up there high.
Well, in any case, this particular pimp was black, and we asked him that same question. Said, "Can you say the South will rise again in a Southern accent?" And there was a big pause, and then he went, "No."
It was really great.
Well, honestly, if I was smarter, I probably would have been like, "Oh, I don't know if I really want to do that one." It's like when the Golden One gave that, when he dropped the GTK RWN and stuff, and you've seen so many. I've seen so many loops of him just saying it over and over and over and over, and I'm like, "Oh, dude, you fucked up, man. You shouldn't have done that, man. It's definitely going to get used against you in a court of law, man. Don't. I don't even like saying the acronym. Hell, that's bad enough."
Adam, do we have other questions?
Oh, yes, we do. All right. Nicole asks, when you were working as a... Yes, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay. I don't know why Auger couldn't.
Can you guys hear Adam? I can't hear Adam.
I think they can.
I can hear him just fine.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
We don't need Auger anyway. Nicole asks, when you were working as a male dancer, how much money would you make on an average night?
Honestly, average night I would do between. I ain't gonna lie, man. I'd be lucky if I made $300, man.
And still, $300 is $300.
But there'd be quite a go home with $100, $150, and I mean, you really had. And I mean, I had to hustle for it.
Yeah.
There was only three of us at the club that I worked at. I worked at the world famous La Bear in Dallas, Texas. And there was 120 dancers, and out of it, I think there was three of us that were all natural, had never done steroids, and of course we were the little guys. And when you go to a strip club of any variety, you don't want to see even remotely real. You want to see more than. So this is why it's like female strippers with boobs jobs that are just so obnoxious, but it works for them in the context of that environment. Same thing within the male strip clubs. The guy, is 6'5", 275 pounds. That's going to be the dude who makes the money. It don't even matter if you dance or not. You just stand up there and pose, and it's fine.
Auger, can you hear me now?
I can.
Yay.
Yeah, but no, I was a pretty low end dancer, man. I never made big money or anything like that. Same time, I'd make $200 in a night. My boy Christian make $2,000.
Oh
wow.
Shit!
What made the difference?
He was a former Abercrombie model, and even if he didn't work out, he could hold a quarter between the creases in his abs.
Oh wow!
So
he was
there's
just
a
just
super high
seriously
correlation
best
between like
Best
how.
looking man I've ever seen in my life.
So there's like a super high correlation for the men with like how attractive you are and how fit you are and like how much money you make.
99% what you look
Yeah.
like. I would get honestly, the money I made mostly was from talking to people. It wasn't even so much about my dancing or anything like that, man. My technique was I would find the girls who were with a whole group of girls from the office or from school or something like that, and find the one that wasn't having a good time. And I'd be like, man, what's up? I'd sit down and talk with them and they'd tell me, oh yeah, this isn't really my scene. I'd be like, man, me neither. I don't really like it either. It's kind of gross. It's kind of
So you were more of a therapist.
Well, I'm a hustler, man. I just know that it's like, okay, if I'm not able to compete with Terry Terranova over here, with my body, but I can compete. I can compete with anybody on my rhetoric. So I would go and I would just talk to people, and and then Fernando, the stage manager guy, we had this deal worked out where I'd sit with a girl, I talk to her for a song, and then he would come over and glare at me and tap his wrist like he's tapping his watch, and I'd be like, "Oh, baby, I'm so sorry, man. I got to get up and try to hustle some dances, man. If we don't, if we don't get free lap dances an hour, man, they put us on they put us on third stage." And they'd be like, "Oh, well, you don't even have to dance. Here's $20. I'll buy a dance from you. You don't even got to dance for me. You just sit here and keep talking to me." And that's honestly as much as that's how I really made my money.
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
So you were a shitty fucking male dancer then.
Oh yeah, I'm not. No, if you think that Thunder from Down Under was trying to recruit me, no, you're crazy, man. No. I was the goth guy at the club, because there had to be one. You can't just have nothing but military guys and fucking fuck boys and the dude with the tribal armband and his hat on backwards. You just can't have nothing but that. You got to have a variety.
Sure, that's interesting.
Yeah, so we had the whole thing. We had the thug guy, we had and he wasn't even real. I mean, honestly, he was ex-military himself, but he had the look. So it's like he would play he played a Tupac kind of character, with he would wear the bandanas and the overalls and had a big fake gold chain and stuff. It was all bullshit. It's just an act, I mean, I played the vampire guy, Whatever.
That's funny.
Yeah. Well, everybody has a background, man. Shoot, mine's just fun.
Yeah. Adam, do we have any more questions?
Yes. Chance asks, what are your thoughts on the recent push by some to broaden the definition of veteran to include social justice warriors? I have never heard of this, but
that. Yeah,
that sounds insane.
Get out of here, man. I honestly, even Pogs had better shut up and be real fucking nice about stuff, man, because I see a lot of Pogs, people other than grunts, out there talking about you need to kiss my ass for my service to your country. It's like, motherfucker, unless you fire an ammo or getting ammo fired at you, you're just in logistics and supply. So fuck you, man. I mean, and I'm not saying that that's a bad thing. I'm just saying don't act like you're some sort of Benghazi hero or something like that because you made sure that those machine parts got shipped to that forward operating base. No, but no, it doesn't work like that. So social justice warriors, yeah, they can get fucked on that. That's not even
you're not even in the service.
No, and get the fuck out of here. That's like, I'm not going to sit there and say, oh, since I'm a meme war veteran that,
what the fuck does that even mean? How do you determine who's a social justice veteran? How do you become a social justice veteran?
Honestly, I think it's when you get your seventh cat. You have to have at least 2 abortions and 7 cats.
I don't think these people, we need a new plague.
Well, there's people out there working hard on the problem.
If Bill Gates is trying to fucking make one, he's got my vote. He's got my fucking vote.
I know of a couple of different people, not personally, but I know of them that they went and followed bioengineering or genetic something along. They're studying that type of shit in college with the express idea. They don't announce it publicly. It's only ever anonymously, but these guys will talk to each other. If any of I've noticed somebody had posted an 8chan meme from or an 8chan screen cap from earlier and stuff. So some of you guys might be familiar with these guys. Germanon, who basically he's apparently he reports that he's going to college so he can figure out how to create ethno-specific bioweapons.
I would not be surprised.
There's already state level governments working on it. It's repeatedly China, Israel. I believe that Japan might even have been involved with that at some point or another.
That wouldn't surprise me in the least. It wouldn't surprise me if there's already something to that effect that's in existence. Like I would be surprised to discover that there's not been anything developed to this point that's ethnic specific. Hello?
Oh, sorry. I wouldn't be. I wouldn't be terribly surprised. Actually, I mean, there's already. Somebody just posted about Unit 731, which, once again, I don't think 731 actually ever got into ethno-specific, but they were absolutely biowarfare, heavily on plague, if I recall.
All right. Do we have other questions?
Yeah. Nicole asks, have you been ostracized very badly? Obviously, you've been ostracized by people that are in your industry, but by anybody you consider an actual friend since this Twitter controversy?
Oh, no, actually quite the opposite. First off, I'm already somewhat ostracized from the piercing community and always have been, or have been for a long time because of the videos and stuff that I do. I deliberately try to cock block the efforts to keep young people out of the business. I'm like, no, fuck you, man. Doors open for everybody. Fuck off. And so that makes me a very contentious person already. I already don't get invited to the parties. I already don't get to sit at a good table at banquets.
Wait. I don't understand. Because you're so open to people entering into the industry and teaching them, this ostracizing you?
Well, that and the fact that, I clearly, I think for myself and I don't, whatever the overall are saying, I don't give a shit. It's like, you guys do you, I'll do me. I don't give a fuck. So I'm already at a position where they don't like me all that much. That and the fact that, to be perfectly honest with you, I have as much social media reach as a large part, most of the APP collectively. So that's a threat. So nobody, of course, if somebody's if that's a threat, then hey, they've got to do what they can to try to counter that. And I get it. I'm not mad at them for.
Right.
I'm just saying, don't think that you're any kind of, don't think that I'm either morally superior or inferior to you guys because you chose the collective strategy and I tried to build my own.
Right. I see what your point is.
Yeah. See,
that's interesting.
Well, here's a real important thing. A good portion of the piercers currently operating grew up watching my videos. I'm their, so many people during their apprenticeships, if they had shitty apprenticeships, they would watch my videos to try to glean some knowledge and stuff that literally wasn't out there for anybody else nobody else was giving it. And so whether or not the overall community or the cool kids like me or not, there's a whole shitload of piercers that are like, hey, look, fucking, you don't have to fucking like him. He's good at what he does and he's badass and he helped me out a lot. And so fuck you. But none of those people have enough cachet on their own to be like, hey, look, no, fuck off.
Enough clout.
Yeah, exactly. Nobody has that. So, and anybody that does have enough would not put themselves out there to defend me at all. They can't do that. And I get it. It's been a hugely polarizing thing in the community. Hugely. I mean, it's only been a month. So the real ramifications, the long-term ramifications have not actually shown up yet. I was discussing with another dinosaur piercer I'm not going to mention his name, but he's somebody that everybody in the community knows.
Okay.
And he was saying that, from his perspective, and talking with a bunch of the other people and stuff, man, they're like, look, we know you and we know the type of shit that you talk about. And we know that you're not actually a fucking, you don't discriminate against people. You don't use slurs. You don't do any of this stuff. We know that this is bullshit, but we also know that it's like, we see why it's happening, and we're not going to, we can't.
They don't want to risk themselves.
They're not going to risk themselves, but at the same time, everybody saw it and everybody knows what the fuck. And they, there's quite a few conspiracy theories floating around inside quietly inside the piercing community itself. I mean, there's been people that have observed that, hey, wow, nobody ever had anything bad to say about JC until the president of the APP opened up the shop 7 blocks from him.
Say that again?
Oh, I said that a lot of people have observed that, nobody ever had anything, I was never subject to any kind of, real scrutiny or any kind of, there was no problem with any of the shit that I talked about for 11 years up until the point that the president of the APP married my former apprentice and then opened a studio 7 blocks from me.
Do you think then that this, are you saying then that this was by design? No.
To be very, very, very clear, I don't believe that. I don't think that at all. I think this is just social justice hysteria.
Yeah.
That, of course, no joke, man. Hey, business is business, man. I'll capitalize on a competitor taking the shit no matter what. However, I don't give a fuck. And so I expect that too. I don't think that's an issue. I think it's more of a deal that if anything, if there's any kind of influence on that at all, it would be more from the fact that, okay, here's this contrast. Here's some people that do things vastly different than JC, and maybe you prefer that. Maybe it's even a thing that you're like, wow, I really prefer these guys so much that I'm going to do what I can to try to help them, and let me help them by joining in on this dog pile. There is a certain aspect of it that certainly, I will say this, certainly with the people inside the community denouncing me, because hell, I've seen people on there that I know damn good and well, hell, these guys actually are fucking like kind of racist people and shit like that. And I've seen them denouncing me, but I also understand why. It's because that endears you to the cool kid clique,
to the mob,
Right. Well, not to the mafia, to the 20 or 30 people that actually make decisions about this community. And
oh
yeah,
this is mafia.
Oh yeah, if I'll tell you, that's one of the things that kind of made me somewhat believe in conspiracy theories, and B, not actually believe in conspiracy theories, because I know that 5 or 10 of us well-placed individuals can have a conversation or two and change the entire direction of the body piercing industry. Now you can extract that to larger scales, like you can look at that on the nation state level. It's the exact same thing. At the same time too, you can have thousands and thousands of people who all agree on a topic, the power, and they don't have the influence, and they're not going to be able to do much about it.
Right. Okay.
Well, guys,
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say I have 5% battery power left on this laptop, so we're going to need to.
All right. Okay. Adam, do you have any other questions?
Yeah, we got one more, so hopefully we can get it done before your battery dies. Chance asks, what are your thoughts on the UN laughing at Trump's statement that we have done more over 2 years than almost any administration in U.S. history?
Well, they didn't actually laugh at that statement. If you look at it, if you actually watch his UN,
that's what I was thinking.
If you actually watch his UN speech, that all that was edited together. When they actually got a laugh from the crowd was something he made. Oh God, I'm brain farting, but he made some sort of little mild joke, and it got some laughs from the crowd. Now, our fake news merchant friends out there fucking edited it all together to make it look like, oh, they're just laughing at him. Dude, you think...
As they do.
Yeah, and really, realistically, I'll tell you, people in foreign countries ain't laughing. And, Western Europe they are, but, ain't nobody in China laughing. Ain't nobody in fucking India laughing. Ain't nobody in Africa laughing. Ain't nobody in fucking It's basically the only people that seem to have any kind of issue with him is, France, Germany, the leadership of Sweden, England.
The left.
Exactly. All the countries that really, honestly, they're losing the plot. And to be perfectly frank with you, the conversation's already moving past that. That's the thing, is a lot of these folks don't realize that, look, man, there's a lot of folks out there debating on these things of whiteness and privilege and maleness and all that shit. And there's a lot of folks that are out there saying, and I mean, a number of people who are like, listen, we've had this conversation. We've had it 1,000 fucking times. You guys are never going to compromise. You're never going to look at this any differently or anything like that. There's no solution for it. So we're just going to organize, give it the color of law, and then kill everybody. Because honestly, and I'll leave you all with this. This is one of those things that, like I said, I listen to my lefty friends, and I have to agree with them on this on a couple of points. And one of those points is that we spent 2,000 years in near constant warfare with each other, and as soon as we got sick of fighting each other, we went around and sailed around the world. And we fought everybody. We kicked the shit out of a lot of fucking people. We kind of somewhat. After World War II, we've somewhat lost our taste for battle, somewhat. However, one thing I know is that, well, it's kind of like, you ever seen the movie The Dark Knight?
Yeah.
Okay, so you remember that part where the guy's sitting in there and he's like, well, basically, I'll give the analogy. It's like, okay, my lefty friends, your entire premise is that white people are so awful that they sailed around the world. They used advanced technology and biological warfare to crush and enslave and destroy entire, just basically fuck up entire continents. And apparently their plan is to fuck with us. And I'm like, is that a good idea? Because I know this real slow to anger, but boy, when those folks like, George Carlin said it the best, actually. Back in about 1988, 89, he was giving a stand-up deal where he's like, yeah, the world learned real quick, man. When those blue eyes sail out of the north, you better nail every fucking thing down, man, because if they can't kill it, they'll steal it. And if they can't steal it, they'll fuck it. And it's like, okay. And that's and to an extent, I have to agree with them. And I'm like, and I'm kind of horrified at the way all this is going, because I don't see it ending peacefully, and I don't see it ending well. And I would much sooner have a situation where I could be able to go to a place and be viewed as a friend, not as an oppressor, or not as a danger, or not as a threat or anything. More like, hey, white guy's here, cool, right on, man, rather than, oh fuck, I don't want that. And I don't want that for anybody, man. I genuinely want it to be a deal where we just have normalized relations between the nations, that all the different groups of people out there are able to go out there and sit down and deal with each other with equity and respect, and be able to actually come to some conclusions and stuff. I really sincerely hope that. And unfortunately, I do feel like the only way that can go forward is if we start having more, a better conversation about, like, well, what does all this mean? What are we doing here? What does, which direction is this going? Because I don't know myself. I can see some scenarios, and so far, none of them look all that good, So, I hope that more sober heads prevail, but, I can't see a time in history where it hasn't ever been a shit show. I can't see a time in history where it's ever been a thing where wildly disparate groups of people came together, held hands, and walked towards a beautiful rainbow fucking future. No, I'm afraid that, unfortunately, I think we're going to see even more of this. I think what happened to me is just another an early skirmish in what we could call the Cold Civil War. And
I think it ties into a growing trend that you spoke earlier at the beginning of the show and mentioned this Kavanaugh issue. And I see some parallels and similarities between what you dealt with, what we're seeing Kavanaugh being put through, and what I think is kind of the standard culturally, societal in our society today, as to how to approach conflict or issue, disagreements or what have you. This idea of
it's just people
people
fighting in different ways. I mean, if you're physically strong, then you want to fight physically. If you are more rhetorically strong, then you want to fight with rhetoric. These people, honestly, they know they're weak. They know they're weak, and that's why they're trying to tear down the strong. And that's just how it is, They know they can't fight us. They can't fight us physically in a fair fight, so they'll try to do it other ways. And unfortunately, it gets responses, and I'm afraid of seeing what that response is going to look like. But I think we all kind of know.
Yeah, I agree. I totally agree.
Yeah, and once again, like I said, don't mistake my observations for endorsement of it. I'm as horrified as most people are, but also powerless to stop it. God, if anything, the worst I've ever done is actually try to stop it all and try to get people to sit down and have more sober conversations with one another and stuff. And, fuck, they was wanting to burn me for it and stuff. And so I'm like, well, okay, you guys got it figured out, man. I'm going to be over here.
Well, Adam, that's the end of our questions, isn't it?
Yep, that it is.
All right. And you're probably nearing the end of your battery life there, JT.
3% battery power. I am absolutely going to have to bid all of you fine people a good evening.
Yep, and we're going to end the show. I appreciate you being on with us tonight. Thank you so much,
you guys, man. Holy moly, it was a really good conversation. Y'all were most welcoming, and I look forward to hearing some of y'all's stuff in the future, man. It sounds like y'all are a good bunch of fellas and ladies, and that I would love to be able to hear more of your perspectives and conversations.
That's awesome. And hopefully maybe in the future we can have you back on.
Well, I hope so, man. Shoot, like I said, I can rant and rave all day and all night about all this type of stuff, man. I'd still keep going if my apprentice wasn't sitting over here going, "Come on, dude, let's go."
Same here. I could talk all day. Well, again, I really appreciate you taking the time. Thank you so much for joining us. I'd like to bid you a farewell and a good evening.
Yes, JT, Sativa, Adam, you've been most welcoming, and seriously, have a great night. And thanks, and to the listeners, thanks for tuning in and giving us a listen. Appreciate it.
That's awesome, brother. You have yourself a good evening then.
Most certainly. Y'all as well, and I hope to be talking to y'all in the future.
You betcha.
All right. Have a good night, guys.
All right,
you
man.
too, JC. Thanks.
No, thank you. Have a good night.
All right. Well, to everyone else, I'd like to add to his sentiment. Thank you so much for tuning in. To my co-hosts, as always, I wouldn't have a show without all of you. Thank you so much for being with me tonight. God, that was a really great show. Normally, we go ahead and have a half an hour show, but we're 20 minutes past our point. So I think this is our after-hours show, which I'm going to call it, and we're just going to end it here. So thank you so much to everyone for tuning in, and we'll see you next time here on the House of Auger.
Thanks for stopping by.
Good evening, and go home.